Nate, give me a signal when we're all ready, sound and video to go. And once we have begun recording. Ladies and gentlemen, the time is now 7:30 and welcome to the Monday, March 4th, 2024 edition of the Town of Forest Heights work session. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kennedy. Councilmember Hines. Present. Councilmember Noble. Here. Council President McDonald. Here. Mayor Miller.
Present.
You have a floor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next, we will have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Next, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. At this time, give us just a moment. Next, we will have approval of the agenda. And I would like to move that we amend tonight's agenda. I move that we amend tonight's agenda, inserting a section for Ms. Kim Ward, who is our accounts payable specialist, to come say hello and introduce herself to the council. She's here this evening. Is there a second? I'm sorry, I want to insert it before department heads. My apologies. It has been moved and seconded that we amend tonight's agenda, adding an introduction from Ms. Kim Ward ahead of department head reports. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, I move that we adopt tonight's agenda as amended. It has been moved and seconded that we adopt tonight's agenda as amended. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Are there any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, we will have an introduction by Ms. Kim Ward. You can please come forward to the podium. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kim Ward, and I just started as accounts payable. Can you not hear me? I apologize. My name is Kim Ward. I just started as accounts payable clerk. I've only been here a couple days, so I've been in AP about 20 years. So I've got a little bit of experience, so I'm very excited to be here. Look forward to working with you all.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Do any members of council have questions for Ms. Ward?
You said 20 years, you got a little bit of experience. That sounds like a whole lot of experience for me.
My hours, I don't have set hours yet. It's kind of based on need. So nothing has been set in place yet. No, part-time.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. And I would just add that Ms. Ward works during normal business hours as needed.
Yes.
Councilmember Noble.
Oh, thank you for allowing me to accept the position.
Well, thank you, Ms. Ward, for coming Town of Forest Heights is pleased to have you. We look forward to a productive relationship, working relationship, and have a good rest of your evening.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
All right, next we will have department head reports. And first we will begin with the town treasurer. And before we take questions on the town treasurer's report, Mr. Frankenfield, if you're online, are there any highlights or an overview you'd like to give about your report for this month?
Yeah, so just a change for the council members, and good evening, by the way. We added some notes on liquidity at the end of our package. So our standard 2 reports, the first one's cash. The next report is percentage of budget spend by department. We added a third report where we talk about liquidity and projections and what happens to the town's cash balance as we move forward through this fiscal year and into Q1 and Q2 of fiscal year 25. So I ask you to pay attention to that. We're going to have a lot of conversations about liquidity as we start in the fiscal year 25 budget season. So I'll leave it there and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Frankenfield. Councilmember Noble.
What's the status of the audit? I mean, the one we've been waiting for forever. And second, do we have any of those processes in place that we discussed at the financial meeting? And third, have we started the next budget period?
So,
Thank you.
sure. So 21's audit is finished, done, filed. Tonight, we're working on a budget amendment to appropriate funding in the budget for Frank DeSalvo to audit both fiscal years that are open, so 22 and 23. And after that appropriation, then we're going to get him started immediately. Policies and procedures, are in process as always. You know, the addition of the bookkeeper made us memorialize some documentation, so we have started. And we keep augmenting processes as we move along. And did I get all your questions?
The third one was, what are we doing about the upcoming budget?
Oh, it's in process. So the mayor and I have had a lot of conversations about fiscal year 25 budget. He's going to meet with the department heads, itemize their ask for fiscal year 25, and then we're going to huddle and consolidate revenues in with the spending ask, and then consolidate a budget to present to all of you. I believe our timeline was end of April. We wanted to have a draft of the budget in front of you.
Thank you.
Council President McDonald.
Hello, thank you for everything you're doing, Todd. I wanted to ask a question about the time frame for fiscal years 22 and 23 audits.
So I would estimate, now we're at the limits of how fast our auditors can work through 2 years of data. I would estimate best case scenario would be end of the fiscal year. So done by June 30th, 24.
And I saw in the audit that was completed for fiscal year 21, some significant recommendations that were made. And from your standpoint, I hear what you're saying in terms of moving forward with SOPs and things of that nature, but there were some significant recommendations that were made to the town of Forest Heights and our internal controls. So of those recommendations, which ones will we be able to, I guess, consider quickly, simply because we're moving forward with getting fiscal years 22 and 23 done? Thank you.
Yeah, let me talk about the audit findings first, and then I want to pull up their recommendations. For the audit findings, those are the significant things that they chime in on when they perform an audit. So there were two findings. One was about timeliness, which we agree, right? Our audit should be done on a recurring basis. The town needs updated records, the state needs updated records. That was the most significant finding. And then their second finding was about our review process. So, basically they're recommending that someone comes behind me and looks at the accounting records and says, yes, that makes sense. Yes, that doesn't make sense. I'm not in favor of that recommendation just because we don't have anyone that's suitable to review, the accounting records the way I do it. So our response there was, we don't agree. We're going to rewrite our policies and procedures that the treasurer can approve all accounting records, etc. So those were the significant report card type findings that they found in the audit and our response to both of them. Some of their other recommendations, let me pull it up. So can we come back to that? Most of it I agreed with, but I think they felt like we had more resources at play than we do. Some of the things we can't do as a small town, and I felt like their recommendations were the wrong scale for the size of the town and the cost of the finance department. So if you give me 10 minutes, I can pull it up and go line by line on what I think. But I thought the majority, they were right in theory, but for us to implement all those changes, given the challenges we have, it's going to be an uphill climb.
Council President McDonald, one follow-up.
I take that into consideration, but I think for looking ahead and the things that they pointed out that would contribute to, I guess, their scrutiny going forward for fiscal year 22 and 23. So there's some things that they're going to consider that we should have in place for 22, 23. Am I understanding that correctly?
And well, so we're switching auditors too. So UHY was a one-time only auditor for 21. For 22 and 23, we're going with Frank DeSalvo, who supported us with the 21 audit as a consultant, but now is back to just doing the audit role for 22 and 23. UHY I felt like was a little too by the book, big towns with huge budgets and 10 people finance departments. So some of that I thought they were a little too nitpicky on. I've got it in front of me. Yes, I agree with 1, 2, 3. I agree with 3 out of their 6, and I can talk through each piece of it with you, maybe offline. But I think they're mostly on what we should be striving for. We might not get there, but I think they're on the right path. Maybe some of the pieces we can find a little bit different navigation.
That's one thing I want to say. So one of the things that they point out, and I'm not sure if this would transition into fiscal year 22, 23, but it mentions that there was revealed a significant portion of year-end accounts receivable aged. Trial balance exceeds 120 days, with several accounts outstanding for up to 2 years. And then they go into the other additional bullet points. So is that something that we would need to look at, or the auditors would be looking at?
Yeah, so the one thing that we found in performing the 21 audit was there was a grant billing. So the town was awarded money from DHCD, $125,000 to do a specific project. And mind you, this is fiscal year 21, and the town hasn't turned in the paperwork to collect that money, $125,000 from 21. So to me, that's the significant part of this accounts receivable aging that needs to happen. I look at the accounts receivable aging, and there's a lot of personal property billings, which are $5, $10, $100. So yes, great to collect, but it's going to take a lot of labor to collect some of these small receivables. So I agree with them, and I agree with the theory, but the time it takes to go chase down a $125 invoice, we have more important tasks to focus our efforts on. So that's my take on their recommendation here.
So one last thing, Todd, I think for those grants that we know have reporting requirements, makes it easier for when we're under an audit to retrieve those documents. So those grants that have reporting requirements, do we have access to those reports?
Yeah, and this goes to something that they did flag, record storage, retrieval, and system improvement, right? So where are our documents saved? How do we get to them? There's been a lot of transition in the treasurer's office. Do we have systematic processes for stacking this documentation that, now as we get into this year, we've got to go collect that 125. So figuring out who we send the reports to takes some navigation. So yes, there's room for improvement there. We can definitely do a better job with this. And I think we're on the right course, but it's the backlog is what's a challenge and slows us down and navigating the right path.
And to add to what Todd's mentioning here, one of the things we're doing is using SharePoint, which is an extension of Microsoft 365, which has access controls, but allows us, for example, grant agreements that we're receiving now, they can be stored in a folder that is a finance folder accessible to personnel who have clearance to be in that folder. But then when someone else rotates into that role, they get the permissions added, they can access the information that's there. It doesn't leave with someone's device if it dies. It doesn't leave with them in a folder if they leave the town. So it's a significant recommendation, but it is something that we're now using a collaborative way to store information so it can roll over to the next person and to the next council and mayor. Councilmember Noble.
Yes, I have a concern with the audit results, and that is if the findings and the recommendations, because the town has been somewhat financially out of order. So if they've made these recommendations, I would, for the sake of the town and its residents and all who live here, do business here, is that we first attempt to take care of, and if it becomes a situation where we can't, that's one thing, but at the same time, they didn't make those recommendations and I'm pretty sure they knew the size of the town, so they may do business with large towns, but they're a professional organization. So when they make the suggestions, and I know the suggestion about checking the treasurer, I don't know if that will call for another professional service, because I know internally we don't have that person. So I don't know if that recommendation is that this is what you've done, now we take it to this accounting firm to, I don't know if that's what that recommendation meant and what that will cost. So that's what my comments are on financial situation. Thank you.
Councilmember Brownson.
I know you said we're going back to the solver to do the 22 and 23, but the solver was doing the 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 audits. And he never stopped. So then 2021 is so out of whack. I'm trying to figure out, and then you're going back to the same person to do the same thing that they were doing all these years, when 2021 is so out of whack and we don't know about 22 and 23. So do we really want to go back to the same well?
Well, Mr. Frankenfield, do you have thought or recommendation?
I can't speak to Frank DeSalvo's timeliness in the prior audits. I felt like part of the reason we got behind on 2021's audit is we didn't push UHY to get this thing over the finish line faster. And finally, after we pushed and we pushed and we pushed, we wrapped it up. So as far as timeliness, the auditors are a contractor of the town. We can demand performance. We can set expectations. We can say, hey, you've got to wrap it up. As far as the findings, it feels like this is the first audit where you've all seen significant findings and flags. Again, I think this is a big audit firm used to auditing bigger clients, and maybe that's not the same experience that you had with DeSalvo, but that's pretty commonplace when a town switches auditors, and they're used to keeping the books and the records one way because they've had one auditor that drove the ship and forced the finance department to act in a certain manner. So I hear what you're saying, that maybe this is a flag that DeSalvo wasn't hard enough on our team to demand a little bit better process. I hear that and I recognize it. Having worked with him as a consultant on the 21 audit, I still think he would be my recommendation because the contract's already in place. I think we can demand the service that we expect, and we can demand the timeliness that we expect. So I would say take that into consideration as we think about the budget amendment tonight.
And I would also add that during my time with the FY21 audit, it was not Mr. DeSalvo who I was having to chase down for information or for status updates. And so I'll just let that be that. Thank you. Councilmember Noble?
Yes, not to beat a dead horse, but I'm going to do it anyway. The audits have always been late. So unless we put something in place with Mr. DeSalvo, and if you had to chase down UHY, it's because our things weren't intact. And my thing with the auditor is we're not looking for a friendly auditor. We're looking for somebody to find what's going on in the town in the financial part. So if you had those timelines, processes for Mr. DeSalvo, then I would accept that, but not for him to, because again, in the last 10 years, I don't think it's been an audit that's been on time. And I know that letters have been submitted for reasons that were not so true. So what I'm saying is this is a time that the town of Forest Heights must get its financial house in order with the help of a professional treasurer. Thank you.
Councilmember Kennedy?
An auditor can't force somebody to give them the information per se. I feel like this is sort of straying to the left when they should be staying in the center. Mr. DeSalvo can only do an audit if we contract with him to do it. And it's not because of the auditor, whoever it is, that we're late. Some of the processes that were in place in the past or weren't in place in the past has already been changed, and we are going through different processes, which, as the mayor stated and other people have stated, which will help us in the future. Once stuff is electronically stored and not old school analog, then it makes it easier for one person to pick up, where the other person may have left off. So, I'm looking forward to getting all of these caught up, hopefully by the end of the year, and this never to happen again.
End of fiscal year. Yes, our target is end of fiscal year,
So
so
I'm talking about even the one that's due the end of the calendar year.
FY 24, yes. Is there any further comment on the treasurer's report for this month? Or actually, let me ask, any more questions on audit before we move to the general report? Okay, Councilmember Brownson?
Yeah, I want to draw his attention to the comment he made about the speed camera target to meet budget of 208,000 in receipts per month. And year to date is only 90,000 per month. So each month it appears that we're like 100 X amount short. So how is that being maneuvered, justified, or accounted for? What are you doing with that?
So that creates a lot of our liquidity challenges, right? So the budget is built on, I'm guessing at $2 million in speed camera revenue this year. If we capture $1 million and we spend according to budget, then we've gone through $1 million worth of cash. I think the town, so what I see so far is our expenses are pretty much on track for what we budgeted, but we're going to miss on revenue. So that makes quarter one and quarter two of fiscal year 25 extremely challenging to meet our operational cash flow. So that means as we enter fiscal year 25, we pretty much have two choices, and it's either raise taxes or thinking about dialing back the amount of operating costs we have. And those are significant challenges that we have. So we have time to correct the ship, but it's going to be pretty significant.
Thank you. I figured as much, but I want to hear you say it. Thank you.
You bet.
Councilmember Noble?
I have a question on the taxes. I know we talked about the residents or the homeowners weren't taxed properly. So
Mhm.
is that taken in account? I mean, how would that change for the upcoming year? Because we know this year was short because of that. So have you had the time to just see what the dollar difference is in that?
Yeah, I remember the calculation as being we underbilled. We told the county to underbill by approximately $140,000. We're so late in the fiscal year, we can go back to the county and say, hey, we made a mistake, go add a surplus billing to the residents, but the collections are going to be slow. The cash isn't going to come in. So my recommendation is at this point, we just incorporate that underbilling into our tax rate change for fiscal year 25.
And we'll make sure that we have it into the county and state correctly this time, right?
Yes, we will.
Absolutely.
Okay, on that note, will that appear to the residents that they have a tax increase when they get their bill?
Mhm.
Okay, so I think we should do some type of education to the resident about what this all means.
Yes, and specifically on that point, Mr. Frankenfield and I have talked about a letter that we will draft to residents to inform them of what happened and the change so they understand the context. But outside of the underbilling and after reviewing this year's budget and past year's expenses and revenue, it's our belief that we need to look at the tax rate even if we didn't underbill for this year, because there's such a shortfall in the general revenue and our ability to increase revenue with viable sources that are long-term and long-lasting is challenged, right? It's not something we can promise to do sustainably between now and the beginning of next fiscal year. So in our conversations, and it has been a recommendation to consider raising the rate, period, and then to account for the underbilling of last year as part of this process for FY 25. Councilmember Noble.
on raising the taxes. This is Town of Forest Heights, this is their working budget. So like any budget, maybe it's things we need to cut out. We can't overspend on those items. And we just have to take in consideration before we jump to raise taxes. We have to look at all of our spending, and maybe if we cut back on some spending, then we don't have to raise the taxes. And I know it's been some time, but at the same time, that's just a hard, I mean, especially we underbuild, no fault of the homeowners, that comes back on us. So we just have to really look at these expenditures and what we're doing. That's just my comment.
Councilmember Kennedy.
I concur with what Councilperson Noble just said. We do need to take a hard look at our line items and see where we can make better financial decisions. Because that's one thing that I've never heard any elected official say, where they're gonna streamline things to save money. Their go-to is always raising taxes. And I don't know about y'all, as a resident of this town, we pay a lot of taxes. So I would like to see us try to find a way to not raise the taxes anymore, because as Councilwoman Noble stated, this wasn't the residents', for lack of a better word, fault.
Thank you, Councilmember Kennedy and Noble. Anyone else have comments on the Treasurer's report?
One last comment.
Yes, Council President.
I would invite those individuals who are interested in the Finance Committee meeting to join us. These are some of the things that we have talked about. Todd has been in the meeting with us. So we're sort of reiterating some of the things that we have put in place that's going to move the town forward. So I just want to make a point of that. Thank you.
And yeah, this is a great point to mention that the next meeting date for the Finance Committee will be Saturday, March the 30th at 10 a.m. It'll be here in the municipal building. It is open to the public. We'll also have a Ways and Means meeting directly following. That'll be at 11 a.m. at the municipal building. Also Saturday, March 30th, 11 a.m. for Ways and Means. All right, we will be taking a close look at the budget. I'll begin budget meetings this week to begin formulating where we can streamline expenses across the board. And we'll be working through the budget throughout the rest of March to find places to save funds without raising taxes. But to go back to my earlier point, which Mr. Frankenfield mentioned, even if we take out the underbilling for this fiscal year, because some main revenue sources in this year's budget and in past year's budget because they have come in so much under what they normally come in, we would be having this discussion even if there wasn't the issue of the underbilling. So I just want to make that piece clear. We're not running to raise taxes, but we're looking at what's going to be sustainable for the town's needs so that we provide what we owe residents, what they pay tax dollars for, and as complete a picture as we can. Okay, we will move to the next report. Thank you, Mr. Frankenfield. Next, we will have the Department of Public Works report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening, Mr. Belnavis.
Can everybody? Can you hear me?
Just speaking to the mic a little closer, sir.
Oh, now I'm speaking. Tonight I'll be speaking on topics that was completed by the Public Works, starting with Arapahoe Terrace, the cleaning up of Arapahoe Terrace, removing leaves Monday and Tuesday of last week. We had one new employee started on Thursday last week.
Lean into that mic, Mr. Belknap.
The department, yes, the department filled potholes on Seneca between Cree and Onondaga. Also went up to Foxway, then went back to Seneca Drive to remove leaves from the gutters. From Cree up to South Huron. DPW was called about a mattress on Sachem Lane in the back of with black plastic bag and was not picked up. We checked it out and found that it was thrown over the guardrail. I'll be going back to look at that area to see, to assess how far we have to reach to grab that mattress since it was thrown over the guardrail. It was on the inside, the inner side, where there's a big long drop. So all the crew has to get involved on that one. 5904 Terrell Avenue. We plan to, okay. DPW was aware of 2 uncovered mattress at 5904 Terrell Avenue. We plan to deliver rules and regulation regarding the trash removal. DPW was also aware of 209 Mohican Drive. Trash cans was still at the side of the house and not at the curbside for pickup. DPW met with Pepco representative, Mr. Marlin, regarding cutting back of trees from the power lines in front of and the removal of dead trees from the front of Town Hall. The DPW will be contacted before they get started. Another item that was discussed was this was something that came from Councilmember Kennedy. I'm happy to say that the Public Works garage was cleaned out, organized, and asset tags was added to those garages. And that's mainly on the main side. We still now have we have 2 other sections to take care of. And that ends my report at this time. If anyone has any questions regarding my report, I'll take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Belknap. Councilmember Kennedy, Councilmember Hikes.
Where was this mattress at that you said was?
So which one? The first one or the one that was thrown over the guardrail?
Over the guardrail.
That was on Sachem Lane, Sachem Drive.
Right. I said that at the last.
Does that mean it's halfway
So,
down the hill?
so what happened was when we got the call, they said there was there was a mattress on Sachem Lane at first. When we checked it out, we found no mattress, but then later we found out that the mattress was thrown over the guardrail. Now it's for us to decide, okay, as a team, how are we going to reach that mattress since it's pretty far down? Someone has to climb over it, attach a rope, and try to bring it back up.
Where is it on Sachem?
It's on the inner side. There's a guardrail that drops off into a.
It's parallel between 210 and Sachem. It's actually not our property, it's actually state highway.
How far up the hill?
It's literally in the middle.
It's in between the council and set.
Oh, okay. Where the speed hump is. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Kennedy. Councilmember Hines.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for what you said about the garage. Good job. That's all. Thank you.
I'll chime in. We're happy to hear about the asset tags, about the reorganization of the garage and overall tracking of the town's assets. That's a very positive sign. So thank you to Public Works for doing that and continue in that vein. I wanted to ask a question just to help you toot your own horn if you can a little more. Don't we have schedules coming out for some of the work that's going to be happening, like continuing leaf collection and some of your other maintenance items around town?
Yes, we have a schedule. Basically, right now, I know I forgot to, I neglected to go back and say that we did go back to Seneca and started the actual grass and tree and leaf removal from the gutters. And that's the plan, to go to each intersection, clearing all gutter drains and sewer drains so that water can flow freely. So that's the plan as of now. I know a lot of people wanted to know when we're going to get those leaves up, and that we have actually started. So we're taking one intersection at a time until we get it all done. On to the next.
Thank you, Mr. Belnavis. Are there any other questions for the Department of Public Works report for this month? Councilmember Kennedy.
My apologies. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Well, next we will move to Code Enforcement Division report. Good evening, Mr. Green.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. How's everybody doing? Good.
Do you have a brief overview for your report, sir?
Everything is always typically straightforward, but I do want to report that we do have 3 properties that were vacant and that were nuisances to the community that have been purchased, and all have renovation projects going on. That's 112 Foxway, 18 North Huron, and 5811 Terrell. They all received stop work orders because there were no permits for either one of them, but I've been in contact with all the owners, and 18 North Huron right now has all required permits, and that project is definitely underway. So that's definitely going to be a better look for the community. Also, we've had some complaints about dogs running in the neighborhood. We've been in contact with animal control, and we're waiting for them to come back for one particular case. But we did find out also that pit bulls are no longer outlawed in the county. So we probably will see an increase in pit bulls. But please, if there's anyone who sees any dogs running free, we need to let us know so that we can have that addressed immediately.
Mr. Green, let us know the best way in the event of someone finding an actively loose pit bull. What's the best way for folks to reach you?
We need to reach me. The best way to reach me is through the cell phone. That number, should I give it now?
Yes.
301-535-6319. And it doesn't matter when. Also, there should be an additional call made to animal control too, because we need them to come out as soon as possible to be able to address these things. We don't have a place where we can house any dogs or a means of picking them up right now, but they are definitely active in picking them up. So we need to make sure we get them contacted immediately.
Councilmember Noble.
Just one question, Mr. Green. I noticed where you have owner address, that's really the owner's mailing address, right? Because I see some addresses that are not in the town of Forsyth.
Yes, those are the actual mailing addresses and their registered owner's address. When we were discussing the rental properties and the ability to identify, this is one way that we do identify them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
One other follow-up on the issue of the dog, since we anticipate it's going to become a more prevalent issue. I know we've had some different types of information advertised in the newsletter about parking and other issues, maybe we can put out a special message about who to contact in the event of a situation with dogs, both yourself and then also county's animal control simultaneously.
I can do that.
Okay, let's try to include that for April's newsletter.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Noble?
Yes, one question on the dogs, and this is for Mr. Best. Is there anything that we as a town can do in reference to just dogs running wild? Because a lot of residents have been attacked, dogs have been killed. So what are we going to do as a community to save the dogs and save the people?
Town has a limited animal control ordinance. There's concurrent authority between the county and town for animal control. The town, if it has the resources, has the personnel, it can expand and have a far more robust animal control ordinance if it wished to do so. But right now it's very limited and it relies on the county a great deal.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the question and for the reply, Mr. Best. Are there any other questions for the Code Enforcement Division report this month? Okay, next we'll move to the Ombudsman's report. Is there any discussion or questions for the Ombudsman's report this month? Okay, next we'll move to the ARPA Project Manager report. Mr. O'Connor, are there any highlights or brief items you want to highlight for council for your report this month?
My new saying of live my life one tree at a time. All right, I do. It's I've handled over 200 customer service calls related to that so far and been able to resolve, I would say, well over 95% of them amicably with the residents. There's always a percentage you're just not going to be able to appease, but I would say even in that, it was mutually, we agreed to disagree and there was no harm, no foul, and the trees didn't get destroyed. So that was the benefit. Aside from that, I made a note in reference to the DHCD grant funding that we currently have. That is a reimbursable grant. After last meeting, I paused on the RFP for that project because it is a significant project. It is reimbursable. We do have deadlines that we need to use this funding. We should have used it last fiscal year. Quite frankly, we should use it this fiscal year to stay on top of our reporting. DHCD has already sent myself and ITA Reese I would call it a quasi-nastygram about our reporting and using the funds. So I'd like to be able to get guidance from council as to whether or not I can put the RFP out for that particular project, being that we will get that money back. And to drill down just a little bit further, it is immediate. We pay that money. So if we have an invoice for $100,000, the minute we pay that invoice, we can submit for the reimbursement, and within 24 hours, it is back in our bank account. So that is what happened with the last DHCD grant, and that mechanism is set in place. So I can't do anything till I have guidance on that, and the Cree Drive project is on hold just until that comes. And lastly, Council President McDonald mentioned protocols for the grants. And since I'm pretty much manage a vast majority, I can assure you the protocols are in place. The treasurer has access to the grants, which is the direct access to all the finance data, everything that needs to be there. The town administrator has direct access. So when it comes to reporting for the grants on any audit in the future, there will be no issues that we saw in FY21. Everything is lined up the way it's supposed to be.
Council President McDonald.
I had one question. It says here that due to residents vandalizing and stealing trees, the remaining trees will be moved to another jurisdiction. People have been stealing trees?
So Yes. Yeah, there was some trees that were stolen. But more so, it was the vandalizing of the trees. There was several residents that went out, ripped them out of the ground, broke the branches off, cut the trees. It was a little disheartening. But in total, there was a significant amount of trees that were ruined. So what the county did, I worked it out with them. They put some in the common areas, but they were very, very leery to plant anything further in any of the right of ways past what they've done. And if a resident, if there was a credible threat of destruction to a tree, then we took immediate action to remedy that situation. But yes, it was significant enough that they didn't want to lose the funding, and they started doing is pushing the trees to other jurisdictions.
Councilmember Noble, did you have another question, Council President? Councilmember Noble?
On reimbursable grant funding, I think we need to think about this fiscal year, because we don't know if the state will have a shortfall and this may not come back. So anything that we want to do, we need to do it prior to then. So if you say it's reimbursable in a day, because when we get to July 1, state has shortfalls too. So that may not be the same, getting it back in a day's time.
And that's not, I'm not pulling that out of thin air. That is the process that we had, just so the mayor council knows. It worked out very well.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. I was gonna add this later, but I'll bring it up now. Had Mr. O'Connor prepare a draft capital improvement plan. This is supposed to inventory the town's capital needs so that as a council, we can look at the items that we need to get done. And then we can, if we decide to move forward with a project related to this funding, we'll have a very good idea of what needs we have, and we can decide on the one that's the highest priority that fits within the funding source. The draft, I'm reviewing it now and hope to have it to council, if not the next meeting, the first meeting in April, so we can plan for it, budget, and then hopefully take advantage. And Mr. O'Connor, if you could get us the dates, the deadlines surrounding this particular award, so that we know when we need to exercise it. Do you have those dates now?
Yes, it was actually last fiscal year. You're supposed to spend it in the year that it's awarded, and that was awarded last fiscal year. So we're a fiscal year behind in doing it. So our reporting, because we didn't spend it, is also behind on this particular grant, which we're taking care of.
Okay. Well, thank you for that update. Before we move on, I know that as part of the tree program that we participated in with the county, there's geotagging, so we know which trees are where. A lot of residents have expressed the desire to know what species of tree was planted near or at their home. How can we find out that information?
Great question. I've answered a lot of that. So what we're going to have is a part of this program. We are going to have an app that is available, and residents will be able to access that app, or we can make it accessible through our website, and they'll be able to click on and see what kind of tree they have at their particular residence. And that'll also apply for the town for maintenance purposes.
Okay, and when will we have access to the app?
So we were supposed to wrap up this week. Unfortunately, due to rain, we've just been extended. I would say 30 to 60 days, we should have a fully loaded app. In the meantime, if there's a particular resident that has a request, all I need is an address, and then I can make the individual request to find out what that particular tree is. I think I've had at least 30 of those calls, so it's no big deal.
Okay. Councilmember Brownson, thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. You said that they took the remaining trees and moved them to another jurisdiction. So if a resident wanted trees, had thought they were gonna get trees, they can't get them now?
So they've moved some, not all. They're being very, very careful as to where they plant in the right of way. If a resident wants a tree and they've emailed us, I've made sure that's forwarded there. And I'm working with the county to ensure we get as many trees as possible. Unfortunately, due to the few that vandalized, the county's a little gun shy about putting more trees in. So some people are gonna lose out.
But the ones that vandalized were not the ones that, I can't say whether they were or not, but if these residents are requesting trees, chances are they're not gonna vandalize them because they want them.
Fair enough. If there was somebody that requested it, they're getting a tree. Yes. I misunderstood the question.
Any other questions for the ARPA project manager's report this month? Okay. Councilmember Kennedy.
What was the original amount of trees that were supposed to be planted?
Well, it was originally supposed to be 1,200 and they had a total of 1,600. So they had more trees available. So it was up to 1,600 trees.
Were we able to plant any of them on the sloped areas that we have trouble with now?
Yes, so there's actually trees that are still going in those areas. They started down Arapahoe Terrace, Arapahoe Drive. They started working their way up the hill. So there's a significant amount of trees. And I'm glad you brought that up, council member, because the council had asked the question about the way the park benches sit in that particular area. And I promised you there'd be trees. There's definitely trees, a lot of them. So it covered up exactly what I said would happen.
Do we need trees on the side of Sachem? Where they got pulled out previously?
So their issue there is the right of way. So the town doesn't have that right of way. That right of way is actually the state. So there's a complex right of way right there.
Are we, so this is the houses that are on Sachem Lane that have their
Sachem
backs
Lane?
facing Sachem Drive? Well, how about the houses that are at the top of the hill? This is as you're going up Sachem Drive, once you pass the first few houses, near 210, then you have a slope
Where the concrete barrier is.
where the concrete barriers are, right, where the retainer was begun.
I will ask them and we will have to look at the right of way there as well.
Okay. I'm confident that's the town's right away. No, it's not. Yes. On the right side? The slow hill. Yes. Yes. Mr. Best, did you want to share?
Yes, please.
The entire right of way that includes Sachem and Arapahoe is owned in fee simple by the state. The town has permission or an easement to maintain and treat as a local public way Sachem and Arapahoe. Several years ago, there was a mudslide or landslide over Sachem, and an agreement was entered into to allow the town to buffet the steep slopes and to put anchors and other devices to secure the slope. So the town has some jurisdiction over that. Plus, the town has general jurisdiction over the entire right of way that's used for the town's purposes. So, if someone wants to check a plat, it's really the 80 to 125 foot right of way that includes Indian Head Highway that is kind of off
Right.
limits, so to
Right.
speak. But the rest of the right of way is another 150 feet, and the town has some jurisdiction over that. So I suggest we look at the agreements and look at some of the exhibits that were in the agreement that was entered into 4 or 5 years ago when the town was authorized to go in there and disturb the steep slopes and to try to secure it. And I have that documentation to share it in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Best.
So I'll get with Mr. Best, and I will also check with the county if they will take an easement over the right of way. So that's ultimately the county's determination whether they'll accept the easement or the explicit right of way.
Okay. One last thought. I know there's been discussion about the town getting access to do visual improvement on 210, right? To remove the brush, the weeds, and to place something there, either evergreen or tree related, that will beautify the portion of it that goes through the town. With the program we entered into with the county, is there a possibility to have trees or vegetation set aside to be used for that project, potentially to save the town costs?
As it was explained to me, it is a state right of way and state owned, so they can't do it. Just like they cannot install on county right of ways because this is actually a municipal side. There's a totally separate portion for county.
All right. Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Next, we will move to the Youth and Community Outreach Bureau.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
I'm super excited to announce that we were finally able to get in touch with WABA for their Learn to Ride program. Myself, Council President McDonald, and Councilwoman Brownson was able to speak with Renee about introducing WABA to Prince George's County programming. And the next step for that will be to meet with Sydney. Sydney is an area surveyor. She's coming out to basically see which areas in the town would be best suitable for the Learn to Ride program, which is just a program geared towards beginning riders, bike safety, biking benefits to the mind, body. And we're super excited to try to get that survey done this month in hopes of being able to introduce the Learn to Ride for Council President's Youth Spring Bike Ride season. That's the first one. The second one is the Future Flow Vision Board Festival, taking place in 12 days here at Town Hall, which is going to, again, be a vision board party hosted by Mayor Lilly and Councilwoman Little to get the youth together and get some ideas and goals set on a board, and to get an idea of the type of programming the youth would be interested in seeing moving forward within the next fiscal year. I do want to give a huge congratulations to Councilwoman Noble, who is being named for a scholarship from the District 8 office. You've been creating great waves in the community. Councilmember Burrows wanted to just acknowledge you. So congratulations on that, Councilwoman.
Congratulations. We'll have to get somebody before us to try to apply for that scholarship, won't we?
Yes. And I'm also excited to announce that today we got confirmation that Employee Prince George's will be hosting their youth employee takeover in May 31st at the Southern Regional Technology Building. Mayor Lilly has been working closely with Mateo's group to try to get a partnership going with them in hopes of having youth employment, with priorities being the youth of Forest Heights taking precedence. So we're super excited about that. We will have more graphics and information as it becomes available to us. And I'll open the floor for questions.
Let me add a comment too. Mr. Allen's been doing a lot of great work in the community. We're planning out events going out a couple of months, so we have time to invite guests in and increase awareness in the community. One thing I'll add to is for the vision board, Future Flow Vision Board session that's happening next week, we were actually able to secure the Youth Poet Laureate for 2024 in Prince George's County to come perform as part of the event for youth. So those of you with those parents at home with youth, we're going to have a youth member come from Prince George's County, from the community, to share their creativity and some of their planning and inspiration for what they're planning to do and how they're planning to achieve as part of that session next week, and we want to make sure that you all don't miss it since we'll have a special guest. In addition to youth getting to plan their own futures and plan out the rest of their year. And you mentioned for employee Prince George's, Mateos. Mateos is referring to McDonald's. Mateos, they own actually 34 locations in the area, but they really treasure the 4 sites location that they've had for many years and want to participate at the fair for youth so that people can find out about jobs, not just behind in the kitchen, but they also offer jobs in technology and emerging fields, which can be long-term careers for the youth in our community. And with that, are there any other questions for the Youth and Community Bureau report for this month? Councilmember Noble.
I have a bag of magazines for your vision.
Thank
board.
you. Thank you. We appreciate any donations we can get.
All right.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Sometimes we throw acronyms around and we know what they are.
Mhm.
But can you tell anybody who is watching or who will watch this what WABA stands for?
Oh, absolutely. The Washington Area Bicyclists Association.
Thank you. And one last thing. So you're looking for magazines just to cut up for?
Right, for the vision boards.
Thank you. Yep. When do you want them and where do you want them?
If we can have them as soon as possible, the event takes place on the 16th, so hopefully we can have them accounted for by at least the 10th.
So where would we drop them off if we have some?
Ms. Hawkins, would there be space at Town Hall to hold them? Pretty please. Pretty please.
So when you're.
Maybe you can find a box. Maybe you can find a box, recyclable boxes here somewhere on site and put it.
I just think Town Hall is a more central location where everybody will be able to come and drop them off. Pretty please.
Yes, let's label the box and maybe we can have it, if we label it nicely, it can be in the lobby.
Okay.
Of the municipal building. Councilmember Bronson.
I just have a question about this, Councilwoman Noble scholarship. What type of scholarship is it and what's the amount? And can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So they haven't released the details yet. They're still fleshing them out. They just released the candidates who have been approved to have it named after them. So there were 3 candidates. Councilwoman Noble is the only one from this municipality that was named, but I don't have the full details yet. As they become available, I can definitely share that news.
And we don't know what type of scholarship it is.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
thank
Yes,
you.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Well, since you mentioned lobby, when are we getting that piece of bullet resistant glass put back up?
I think it's gonna come in town administrator's report.
Okay.
They'll give updates about that.
Okay.
There was one other item. Let me pull it back. Oh, so we, council member Noble and myself had a meeting last month with an organization, the Epsilon Tau Omega chapter, Alpha Kappa Alpha Incorporated. They have a nonprofit part of their organization, and they're gonna help us run a program called Power for young ladies in the town. But they are going to have volunteers at the youth event on Saturday the 16th. So they'll have some folks who can help with executing it. Just wanted to throw that note out, and then they'll also be presenting at the next meeting to introduce themselves to the town and some of the programs that they'll be able to offer. All right, we'll move next to the police department report.
I was just excusing myself. I have a psychology test.
That's right. We have Mr. Holland is a student himself.
Please wish me luck. I'm struggling right now, but wish me luck.
Good evening. Thanks for your report tonight. So next we have the police department report. And is there an overview for the police department report? Or highlights?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the police department report, we have the statistical reports, what happened for the month of February. I do want to point out that Prince George's County, obviously, we don't have our own dispatch. They have a new system to where it's that you can text 911 and to get a call for service. So if you look in the report on the second column, you'll see a text request for emergency services. We had one within the town of Forest Heights. I do also want to point out that with myself and Mr. O'Connor, we are actively applying for grants for initiatives and technology to kind of combat the rise in crime. Obviously, which is no secret within Prince George's County and or the state of Maryland, carjackings has increased. We've had 2 carjackings in the town of Forest Heights. This was done by using the service of Uber, where that the suspects were picked up in another location and were dropped off in the town, and they carjacked the driver by force and with a weapon. So we want to make sure that people are staying vigilant. Obviously, we would not know if somebody's going to use an Uber to come to the town. But so what we did as a police department, as trying to stay proactive, we have certain days where we have initiatives to where when we see Ubers coming or Lyfts coming to the town, we follow them to make sure that they're dropped off in their proper destination. And to make sure nothing happens. So it's just make sure that we're staying visible for that. Obviously, with the same thing as the store robberies that we have. As you notice, one of our stores of 7-Eleven by corporate, they had a surveillance camera that was in the parking lot. That is no longer there. They pulled it for as far as funding. So that was actually for us as a deterrent, but that's no longer there. We spoke with the managing person over that commercial business, and she says that she received notification that they're pulling them out because of funding. So we're thinking of ways to deter crime in those areas. We've also been speaking with the owners to try to improve lighting in those areas. I think I briefly told the mayor that I'm looking to see if we can do something as far as an ordinance to put some things in place to make sure that our store owners try to help us deter crime by improving lighting and security cameras, and see if we can make that maybe by ordinance to help them. So I'm looking at other municipalities to see it's been done, and I want to see if we can maybe implement that here. To try to combat the crime. I actively participate with the Prince George's County Chiefs Association that we're trying to, I do virtual testimonies in Annapolis just to try to help testify with certain Senate bills or House bills for juvenile justice, for technology grants for the state. We've had a new organization, which is called the Minority Chiefs Alliance. That's a group of chiefs right now within the Prince George's County to make sure that we have certain priorities that we want to make sure to reach Annapolis. I don't know how that happened, but that is a new organization which is currently being formed, but I don't know how, but they elected me as the president. So we're taking initiatives for municipalities such as ourselves to make sure that our voice are heard. So because it's different, because the crime that we have here is not the same type of crime that you would see in Ocean City. So the laws may not affect us. So we want to make sure that that Annapolis and the lawmakers know our concerns down here in Prince George's County. Mr. Mayor, that is it for the police department report.
Thank you, Chief Reese. Councilmember Noble.
Yes, Chief. On the Minority Chief Alliance, is that minority chiefs in the state or is it just?
In the state.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Congratulations, President ITA chief. I don't know what else you're gonna be. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the police department report for this month? Well, congratulations, Chief Reese, again. All right, next we will move into the next report, which is the ITA report, the ITA, Interim Town Administrator Report.
I don't think that's in your packet, but I do have a brief overview, Mr. Mayor.
Please proceed.
Yeah, so to address the first thing I have is the vacancies. Obviously, the town administrator vacancy, that announcement has closed. I'm sending, I guess, viable candidates to the mayor. Obviously, we are still going through with the town clerk. We have one more vacancy for as far as public works. And we are in the final stage. We're going to have another follow-up meeting with the administrative assistant candidate. So that should be moving hopefully this week. The next thing is I do want to address, I know Mr. Green addressed, we did have last week no, you don't have to report. I do want to address the animal complaint that we did have someone called me. And I'm not an animal lover, so well, a dog lover. So I was in the car calling resources too. But we did have a pit bull, but which that just to make everyone aware, we got educated. So we had the pit bull loose. Obviously, I called Mr. Green. The ordinances that we do have in place, we have taken steps to rectify the situation with the owner. We did contact Mr. Green, contacted Animal Control, and we also called ourselves as the police department. And so what they informed me is that due to a federal lawsuit, Prince George's County has stopped enforcing the ban. So the law is still on the books, but I guess they stopped enforcing until they rectify the federal lawsuit. So that's a work in progress. So I will keep you abreast with how that's going. Now I do know Animal Control is definitely here in the town. They are short staffed as well because for the whole county they may only have 2 personnel working. So that's one issue. The next thing is a positive report is regarding the streetlights. The mayor and I had a very productive meeting with our municipal liaison from the county executive office, Mr. Denise Ross. He gave some contact for Pepco. And so that has worked out. So what we did was we instructed, I instructed Mr. Dool and his staff to go out and actually take a survey, what we did not already have, of all of the out street lights within the town. We have a total of right now 26 reported. I have taken that list and sent it over to our contact at Pepco, and they are making that a priority. And that's a good thing. And so I'll be reporting back to see if there's any changes by next meeting for as far as that. But we still also want to encourage if residents to report it. They can also report it. It's in the newsletter. They can report it by phone and or the web portal. If you go through the web portal and put the address and you have a poll number, you can report the outage of the street light. If you go on Pepco's website, there's actually the portal has exactly of each street lights within the town. You just got to click it and report that it's out, and it'll go through. But this is to give them a little push to make sure that they look at the more priority ones that's within the town. The next thing I have is the street cleaning. I'm suggesting with Mr. Dool that we may want to implement a street cleaning schedule, maybe using a leaf vac. So my suggestion is maybe to have, or it has to be done by ordinance, maybe to have like no parking on the side that we currently park now, to give for a few hours, to give the chance for DPW to actually clean the curb and the storm drains. Because if you look at it, just giving an example, Ottawa, there's only parking on one side. So where the cars are parked, that side is never clean. So you only get a chance when cars move. So I'm suggesting that to clean that so we can keep the curb and our I guess storm drains clear. And that also gives us a chance to see if we need to repair curve or anything like that, because we really can't see the damage if there is any. I've been working with Mr. O'Connor, evaluating the 457 plan, and we may need to, as far as the contribution to the 457, I know in the past that the town had passed a going forward for the state retirement. But if Mr. O'Connor wants to give a little bit more, but in order for that to happen, we have to stop contributing to the 457. I understand with the financial strain that the town may have right now, that may be a plus for us, and to get our affairs in order. So I'll let Mr. O'Connor talk about that if you want to.
Sure, briefly. In order to move forward, we've gotten our audits moving online. In order to enter the state retirement, first, our audits need to be up to date. But then secondly, it's required by law that we are not allowed to contribute. There can be no employer contributor plans on the books when you try to enter the state retirement plan. So in order to continue on to the next steps, we would have to redefine our defined benefits plan. And the 457 would have to be employee contributions only. And then the town, during the process of entering the state retirement, would not have to make the 6% contributions. That money would just remain in the general fund and be reallocated to whatever resources the mayor and council saw fit at that time. But it is a required and necessary step. We cannot submit the application without that process being done. It's an explicit question on the questionnaire.
So we can go into details if you like, as far as the retirement, but the next item I have on my list is giving an update to the Veterans Memorial of the flagpole. So we've recently, as of last week, we closed out some old invoices that prevented us to getting the necessary equipment to go up to the pole. So that should be moving. The next thing is we did, as Mr. O'Connor mentioned in his report, we did get a letter from the state regarding our DHCD reporting requirements for some funds that we received in fiscal year, I believe last year, that they are wondering what's going on with the money. So I'm working through that. Mr. O'Connor's we're going to do that in conjunction with Mr. Frankenfield. So make sure that we stay in compliance. I'm working on some information on the website, our newsletter, our social media platforms, to increase information as far as giving it to the public, as far as like the mayor mentioned, when are we going to be doing certain cleanings on street for leaf pickup, so we can post that schedule. We have been receiving complaints that when Public Works goes through with the big machine, that their car is getting dirty because of all the dust. So it's the nature of it. But in order to, to give more information to our residents, we want to make sure that we're putting out those type of schedules on all of our platforms. Also working on, maybe we can do some signage that when we do work on our streets, that we are giving adequate notice to our residents that work is going on in a I guess in enough time. The next thing I'm doing is also working with Mr. O'Connor regarding we're working on the Safe Streets and the Roads funding and the response to citizen complaints. This is dealing with Vision Zero that the state has. Basically, we're trying to obtain funding that we don't have to pay back to improve the streets that we currently have. Obviously, our main one, not the municipal streets, but to maybe to increase pedestrian safety on 210 Livingston Road, excuse me. There was also talked about doing a bridge for pedestrians to get from one side to another. So Mr. O'Connor is working on an initiative for that. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Mr. O'Connor.
I did briefly. There's billions of dollars allocated from the federal government to the state and municipalities. It's not a reimbursable grant, so we'd be awarded these funds straightforward. It is a part of Vision Zero. Vision Zero is zero fatalities on Maryland roadways. It's a national campaign, actually international. What we would be doing is, in order to participate in this grant, we need to pass a resolution that adopts the state of Maryland Combined Traffic Safety Plan, as well as the Prince George's County Traffic Safety Management Plan and the Consolidated Transportation Plan. It's commonplace. We're not the only municipality that would be doing this. Prince George's County's adopted it. And what it is a philosophy that roadway safety is a priority to the town, to the police department, and protecting pedestrians. Our municipality be eligible to apply for up to $9,999,999. Because if we apply for 10 million, we hit another category, and it's not applicable. Things that can be purchased as equipment for the police department or requested to be purchased: infrastructure projects such as sidewalks, pedestrian bridges, lights that cross the roadway in order for pedestrians to cross when they're in there, various overtime funding for traffic safety initiatives. Basically, if you can figure out a way to go ahead and stop a traffic fatality, a pedestrian fatality, a bicyclist, it fits into this category. To this point, Mount Rainier participated in this program. They passed the resolution and they were awarded $9.7 million for a project. It was a massive project and they benefited greatly from it. It is time sensitive. This resolution definitely needs to be passed because we have deadlines for the grant. As everything with the feds, they like to notify at last minute. So that is the gist of that. The sooner the better to get a resolution passed would be great. And I could then start the process of planning and working with the chief to figure out what we're going to do to stop the crashes and any fatalities.
I appreciate that, Mr. O'Connor. So basically we have a lot of projects. So we're going to be pushing them out to obviously our various committees to just kind of talk about them. I want to bring as much information to our committees, the council, and our residents, so we can kind of brainstorm with these projects, so we kind of work through them, so everybody is informed about it. That's my ultimate goal. The last thing is the lobby for the window. So I think maybe about a couple of weeks ago, we had the pleasure of having Councilman Kennedy do a walkthrough downstairs of where the treasurer will sit, and those rooms back there, to maybe utilize a surplus of materials that we have to kind of revamp some office space. Obviously here in the town, we have a storage and office space issue. What we want to do is try to recreate it to maybe utilize an unused space for office space. So if you ever been to back there where the old police department, where the treasurer sits, there's an old area back there where there's old sink that is ancient that we don't use, to maybe pull that stuff out and to make another office and utilize the materials that we currently have stored in the garage to do that. I'm not saying that it's going to be completely free. Obviously, we may have to purchase some door frames and things of that nature. But if we have a problem, so if you actually go into the garages up there, there's a lot of boxes of old files that's up there that it's just not viable to let them store it in the garage. So this is a way that maybe we can bring them down back to the office, go through them, and see if we even need to do it per our retention schedule to even keep those files up there. So, but obviously going back to that, with that plan, we also want to put the ballistic resistant glass back up there. Obviously, Mr. Dool, his staff, we recently just had a new addition to the Public Works Department. So now they can do a little bit more projects. for that. So I can say, maybe, not giving you a definite date, but within 2 weeks, we should have that window back up. With, long as we have the staff to do it. We're trying to catch up on some, items that we, fell by the wayside due to staffing issues. But we're trying to catch up. But Mr. Mayor, that is, it for my town administration report.
Very comprehensive report. Very comprehensive. I want to thank ITA, Interim Town Administrator, and Chief Reese for tackling so many of the town's challenges. And there's one other thing I want to highlight. He did a great job pointing out the many areas that council has been raising that we needed to address: Pepco streetlights, vacancies in the town. We saw Ms. Ward was here tonight. Schedules. I just want to also notate that in the newsletter, the entire schedule for the whole year of administrative closings are in the newsletter and will be forthgoing for all residents to see. All the trash holidays for the entire calendar year will be in the newsletter going forward, in each newsletter, so that you have more information to make decisions and to be informed. And lastly, one thing that the chief left out that he's working on that we're excited to present soon is an organizational chart for the town administrative positions. And with that, I'll go to questions. I know I'll go with Councilmember Noble Councilmember Brownson, because I see your hand now, but I know Councilmember Noble had a question as well.
I have a question about the 457 plan. That's a state retirement plan, am I correct?
No, ma'am. So currently, right now, in the town, we have a 457 plan through a company, Mission Square. So I believe it was last year, we had a resolution to explore the town going after the state retirement,
Right.
for all employees. And so, but there has to be a transition. Obviously, the town is contributing the 6% to it, which there's no mandatory employee contribution as it would be for the state. So Mr. O'Connor, as he has been the project manager for that transition, he informed me that in order to go forward with the state plan, we have to obviously do something, I believe, by ordinance or resolution to stop contribution to the 457, so we can go forward with that plan.
Okay, so what's gonna happen to the money in the 457?
So the money the town would stop contributing to it.
Contributing?
Yes, I'm sorry, contributing to it. But the employee would be able to still continue. The money would still be there.
Oh, so the town will stop the 6%.
Correct.
But the employee, if they choose to, they can contribute. So why not just close that out?
Well, because they have funds that's in there. So also within that, so say that the town did elect to get the state retirement plan, you're unable to transfer that money out of the Mission Square to the state retirement. So
Right, so pay it out.
Well, it's governed by ERISA.
Yeah.
The federal statute, and it has tax implications and when the money can be used. There's quite a bit of rules and regulations. Emanate from ERISA.
So some of the employees, I remember, they should take, so if you transition, if they have loans and stuff against that, how will that transition to the state plan?
Oh, I see.
So it wouldn't, so that if somebody has a loan against their 457, per the agreement, they still have, that's payroll deducted. So we as a town would send it over there. That's one of the items that we had to fix because that wasn't happening. Also within that, there's something else about the 457.
So my question is, what obligation for the state plan will the town be taking on?
So that's the evaluation. Mr. O'Connor can speak to it.
So what happens is it depends on which plan. So we get evaluated. There's the regular state retirement, the teachers, and then the law enforcement officer state pension. There's two different audits that happen. There could be anywhere from a 6% to 7% contribution on behalf of the town. And then the employee would have to contribute the same amount mandatorily. So it's a match. Yes, thank you.
But the match is at the same rate that the town contributes now.
Yes. And so that's how that would move forward. And That's basically the assessment. It just depends on which one you're in.
Okay, so if the employee has to contribute in order to get the 6%, right now with the 457, they don't have to contribute, right?
That is correct.
So actually, the employee will actually be having another 6% or 7% taken out of their paycheck.
Well, no, the employee would only have 6%. So what's going on right now is, let's say I have a 457, I'm contributing nothing.
Right.
The town is just giving 6%.
Right.
So in this case, they're basically partners in the retirement. The town's giving 6% and the employee is giving 6% mandatorily. They can't give any less or any more. So that's the basic gist of the state retirement.
Right. So I mean, for the employee, it's best to keep the 457.
Well,
No, not at all, actually. So 457 is very different from, it's a supplemental retirement fund. And when you're talking about the state retirement, it's backed by the wealth and the balance of the state, a large portfolio that's managed.
In other words, they may not have money there when they get ready to withdraw it.
Correct.
Okay,
No, but on the state side, the state is a reliable system and it's defined by how many years. It has a deferred retirement option plan. And it also sets a goal on a 457. It's a supplemental retirement. It's not truly a retirement fund similar to a 401k, where you would invest and set strategic goals through your investments to retire by a certain age. So, yeah. Sorry,
let me go to Council Member. Okay, Council President McDonald.
Those dollars pre-tax dollars,
Yes.
contributions that the employees make.
All contributions are pre-tax.
pre-tax, okay.
Yes. So, yes.
so I do want to add, so what happened with, especially with the 457, this is contribute to the mayor. And I didn't know this has happened. So we've recently, for an example, if obviously with the town contributes 6% to the 457, there's a vesting period of 3 years for the employee. So they have to stay, they can't touch it. So they can't. So what is happening is any employee that has left less than the vesting years, the town can request a redemption to get their money back. I don't believe that's been happening. The mayor recently that's been requesting. So we are in the process now of getting the funds that we've contributed to the 457 on the employee's behalf, but we're getting that back. Right now, we received one check. I passed that information to Mr. Frankenfield, and we're going to speak more about that on Wednesday. So we should be getting that back as well as funding.
Councilmember Kennedy. Thank you, Chief Reese.
A lot of information. So just for clarification, the new state retirement plan is not automatically 6%. So the town will match up to a maximum of 6%. So whatever the employee contributes up to 6% is what the town will match, correct?
It's a mandatory percentage.
So it is a mandatory 6%.
The state will dictate with a percentage. Yes.
Okay. Also, keep in mind, everyone, 6% does sound like a lot, but it's pre-tax. So what you actually see minus out of your check is going to be less than the 6% because it is pre-tax. And in the long run, they'll actually get 12%. But is there not also a vesting period for this also?
There is. It just recently changed. It used to be 10 years. I believe it's now 12 years. So you vest at 10. And they also changed the variance on the retirement age for just the regular state retirement. So you have to vest at 10 years. So there's a level of commitment that comes along with.
So if I only plan on working another 3 years, I'm mandated to contribute to this?
Where?
The state retirement. If I know I'm retiring in 3 years.
Well, if you've been employed with the town and you will meet the vesting period because of your employment prior to us enrolling, how does that work?
So what they do is they amortize. So they'll look at it this way. They'll say employee A has been with the town for 10 years. Employee B has been here for 5 years. The retirement's 30 years. They amortize the amount of time it would take for that person to get to the retirement. So you're payments into the system are adjusted based on how long it would take that person to get to retirement. So to make it very simple, if there's 20-year retirement and an employee's worked here 10 years, at the point when the system is brought in, they are automatically vested, and then they amortize the payment. Also, the other thing for the state retirement is it honors your veterans as well. You get an automatic 5 years of service into the pension paid for fully by the state. So that's another thing.
I see a comment from Mr. Frankenfield. I think he's trying to chime in here.
Yeah, my question, Mr. O'Connor, was can the employees opt out or it's all or nothing with the employees?
No employees can opt out. Hold on, I'm free from that. I apologize. When the town moves to do this, all right, the very first time, if there are any employees that want to opt out and do not want to participate in the retirement at that time, everybody has to vote. The town employees have to vote to participate. If they choose to opt out, they are no longer eligible and will never be eligible to enter into the state retirement system as long as they are employees with the town. Any new employees that are hired, when they are onboarded, it is mandatory that they participate in the state retirement. So current employees have an opt-out and new employees do not.
Did I answer your question, Mr. Frankenfield?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Kennedy, this is retirement related?
Of course. So I'm familiar with that. In the past, the employees had to agree to go on, I guess, whatever medical plan we had. So if I don't meet my time to be tenured, if I leave, then of course I would forfeit the matching funds, but I would still be able to take the funding that I contributed toward it and either cash out, get penalized, or roll it into an IRA or another account, correct?
Yes, for instance, myself, I have 9 years into the state system. I keep that time. It's never going anywhere. If I join a state system, my 9 years pushes into that, whether it would be LEOPS or whichever, it doesn't matter, as long as it's a state system. You are correct.
So one last question, insofar as the opting out. So if we have 10 people, 8 decide to go with it and 2 opt not to, are the 2 that are in opposition of it then forced to have to go into it, or what is the option?
No, they're opted out for life. They can never join as long as they're, life as an employee here in the town of Forest Heights.
But also the original 457 plan is going away. So the 2 in that example wouldn't even be able to stay on that, correct?
No, they would not. They would have to make their own contributions to the 457. And one other portion of this, as we're evaluating this is just not extend to the employees. This does extend to the elected body. So the state retirement extends to the elected body at, X amount of years of service, you would then be vested. And if you never ran again, you would receive a nominal retirement check. I think there's something like $100 a month, depends on what jurisdiction, but it could be more. But either way, it does extend to the elected body.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Councilmember Noble, you waited a long time to ask your question.
This is for Mr. O'Connor. Vision Zero, you said?
Yes.
The grant. Question on the qualifications, because you cited Mount Rainier as receiving the money, and I know that. And I did talk to the mayor last month or so, and I know all of her audits are done up to date. So my question is, for the town of Forest Heights, is that a qualification?
So there's nothing in the notice of funding opportunity about your audits being up to date as a requirement. However, as a good business practice, that is something that you want to have prepared for any of the grants that come down. It is not a key indicator. The only requirement in the notice of funding is we have to pass the resolution. That's the only requirement I saw.
Well,
thank you.
The count is on those audits. So that's a factor we want to eliminate from discussion before this fiscal year is over. But thanks for that question and thanks for the clarification. Council President McDonald.
So, Mr. O'Connor, Okay, elected officials, us, y'all talking about us up here, would be able to, I guess, contribute to the retirement plan, right? So if in the event, let's just say, I'm not running the next time and I get a little check, but then I come back and want to run, how would that work?
So you have to make a decision. I've been in those shoes. That's where my years in the state system came from. So it's something that you need to figure out whether you want to, once you're vested, if you're done, or you just want to hold on to that time and run again. 10 years, I believe, is the 10 years term limitation of 10 years. So at 10 years, that's where you would sit. And then after that, I don't know, would you want to come back? So it's 12. Okay. Okay. 12. So after 12 years, yeah.
Yeah, it's 12 years.
There you go.
12 consecutive years. 12 consecutive years.
So your time doesn't leave you, to your point. So if you ran 2, off 2, on 2, off 2, you just keep building up.
I had one question for Chief Reese. Chief Reese, for the record, could you give us a written report, please? Thank you.
Yes.
Councilmember.
Interim ITA, would you please submit
Yes.
a written report? Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Right, I'm gonna backtrack to the street lights, because you had mentioned 2 different ways that people can report it, either through the town or through Pepco's portal. Seeing that we have had fun getting Pepco to respond and doing it, should the residents do both?
So the 2 ways what we would like for our residents to report it is either call Pepco or go to Pepco's website. Because then we'll be able to track. Now, of course, if we were to report it, we would go through the same process as the resident would do. Now, of course, if as a resident, if we're not seeing it in a timely fashion, report it to the town. And so we can go through our resources to do it. Now, with the person that we're dealing with now, I don't want to belabor them with this regular stuff, but we want to go through the regular process. Now, if it's not going through it in a timely fashion, as such, I believe it's 45 days of what they put on there, then you can report it to the town and we will escalate it from there.
So on Pepco's portal, if I report a street light today,
Yes.
and then 5 other people report it, is that something the town has access to, or that we can see that it's already been reported?
We will not. Now, I'm going to say this, not if the resident doesn't report it. So obviously, when the resident reports it, they get a service number and they get they can report that back to the town. I would encourage them to record that and give that to one of the information so we can go back to the managers at Pepco. That's what I would do. Yes, sir.
Okay, so they would get some type of confirmation.
Correct. Either the phone or the website. If you call and report it on the phone, the operator will give them a service ticket number. If you do it on the website, it will pop up on the completion screen.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because some people would get discouraged if they call and they don't see any results from it. So I just want to make sure that anybody's listening understands the procedure that we would like for them to follow and what will happen afterwards.
Right. Now, I will encourage now, we've even come into we've notified Pepco, some poles don't have a pole number, which over the time may have fallen off vandalism, if you will. You can report that to the town because we can help, facilitate that. We can go to Pepco, say it's in front of this address, and we have the officials come out to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Interim Town Administrator Chief Reese. Next, we will have public period. Is there anyone online who wishes to speak during public period at this time? Okay, well, there's no one in the audience here or online who wishes to speak, so public period is now closed. Next, we will move into legislation. First item of legislation for tonight is Resolution 09-24. This is a resolution to approve the purchase of a replacement police vehicle introduced by myself, Mayor Lilly. And I move that we adopt Resolution 09-24. Second. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 09-24. Discussion. Does this need to be passed tonight? I'm gonna actually go to Chief Reese to give a little context.
So, I'm sorry. So this is the vehicle. In late September, we had a vehicle that was a total loss on Oxon Hill Road. Obviously through our insurance company, Legit, they deemed the net vehicle worth to be $14,393. We received a check minus our $250 deductible. We have taken those proceeds and it's now in the general fund. I wish to just some of the items in the vehicle were salvageable. So we took it out of the vehicle and we're waiting for it to put in a new vehicle. With that, we came across, obviously, I don't know if anybody's paying attention for the news, Sea Pleasant Volunteer Fire Department, they are no longer in service. So they had vehicles. So they fell under Prince George's County Fire Department. And so they had a vehicle, as you see, that's going to go to bid. So they are willing to sell us the vehicle for $12,500, less than the $14,000 that we received. The vehicle only has 3,500 miles on it, and it's literally brand new. So in that vehicle, as you see in the also as an exhibit in the resolution, it's worth probably over $40,000. It's a 2019 Ford Police F-150. And I included everything with it. So that is the context we would like, if the council will, to go ahead and purchase it. We have a upfitter that's going to do everything. And our insurance company, Legit, the money that we use, the $2,000 were used to transfer from one vehicle to the other.
Thank you, Chief Reese. Councilmember Noel.
Chief, is it the 2,000 cost to have it fitted? I mean, the car, or is it more or less?
So it's about this. It's not that much. I would expect for it. We've already been talking to a vendor. It may cost $1,500.
Okay.
The vendor that we did, our insurance company, Legit, actually paid for to take all of the salvageable items out of the total car. So they're just sitting in his lot now. We just got to pay to put it back into something else. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kennedy.
So you mentioned anything that was salvageable. So is that 1,500 to 2,000, including anything else that was not salvageable?
So we don't need anything else. It was a front end collision. So obviously all of the things inside were salvageable. We're getting the most valuable items, such as $4,000 police radio, the Axon in-car cameras, the tag readers that were on the back. Those are the most expensive items. That's what I really want to salvage. Other things that's in the car, such as like the lights and anything like those are minimal costs. Those are not the expensive items that we really want. And those have a service year to about 3 to 5 years anyway. So we're going to have to replace it.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions regarding Resolution 09-24? Oh, Chief, do we need to pass this tonight?
Absolutely, yes.
I have one.
Councilmember Brownson.
So you're going from a F-150 is a pickup truck?
Yes,
Okay, so you're going from a car to a pickup truck.
yes. And the reasons for that is, so now in the market of police vehicles, so just giving you an example, like a Ford Taurus, they don't make it anymore. So there's limited, police vehicles have now transitioned into all trucks. So like if you was to get a car for a police vehicle, it will probably be like a Dodge Charger. We do not recommend getting a Dodge Charger because it is high maintenance and it costs a lot. So we would rather just get something. A Ford is a pretty normal use. Obviously, we go to Prince George County Fleet to get all of our maintenance done. And so we want to get a car that they're used to keep the cost down. And so right now, yes, ma'am, we currently have an F-150 already in our fleet. So it was just the valuable one. We're just used to it and we know it doesn't give us any problems.
Thank you, Chief Reese and council members for questions. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Noble. Yes. Councilmember Hines.
Yes.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilmember Brownson.
Yes.
Council President McDonald.
Yes.
Mayor Lilly.
Yes.
We have 6 yes and 0 no. Motion passed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next, we have Resolution 10-24. This is a resolution to accept a grant from the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention for law enforcement training. Excuse me, this is introduced by myself, Mayor Lilly. Is there a discussion on Resolution 10-24? We don't have to vote on this tonight, do we?
I would like for you to.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
I'm trying, council. I'm trying. Okay, so I'll make the rule a little more relaxed. I move that we adopt Resolution 10-24. Second. It has been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 10-24. Discussion.
All right, yes, this is office from the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention, with the help of our program manager, Mr. O'Connor. We were gracious enough to get awarded a grant for law enforcement training. They were only doing some specialty grants, so this is going to help us out. This grant will, for Part 107 drone training. It's going to pay for it. We don't have to pay anything. And so we were just awarded that, and we would like to give our officers some more initiatives as band police. So it's a non-reimbursable grant.
Is there Councilmember Noble?
Just a question. Will the town in the near future be getting any drones?
We actually have a drone.
Oh.
So most people don't know, we actually have, and when we started to get interest with this is we currently, we have 2 pilots that are within the town. Mr. O'Connor is a pilot, and one of the officers, Javon Taylor, he is a pilot. So they expressed interest in it, and all of the other officers expressed the interest. And so hopefully Mr. O'Connor be looking for a grant, non-reimbursable. Yes, please.
Any other questions from council on Resolution 10-24?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I recommend
Mr. Benson.
strike the first recital. It's irrelevant.
Okay.
Strike it.
Okay, well, I will draw the motion well, actually, I move that we amend resolution 10-24, striking the first whereas in its entirety. Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that we amend resolution 10-24, striking the first whereas in its entirety. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The ayes have it. I move that we adopt resolution 10-24 as amended. Second. It has been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 10-24 as amended. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Noble. Yes. Councilmember Hines. Councilmember Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilmember Rousen.
Yes.
Council President McDonald.
Yes.
Mayor Lilly.
Yes.
Motion passed 6 yes, 0 no, as amended, striking the first whereas out of the paragraph.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Best. Next, we have resolution 11-24. This is a resolution of the mayor and council of the town of Forest Heights amending the amounts for the town's annual audit for fiscal years 22 and 23. This is introduced by myself, Mayor Lilly, and Mr. Frankenfield, is he still online?
Yes, Mayor, I'm here.
Do we need to vote on this resolution tonight for amending the audits amounts for fiscal year 22 and 23?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Good. Well, we'll have, is there a discussion on resolution 11-24? Councilmember Kennedy.
So looking at the line items at the bottom, for there's an increase for American Rescue Plan Act, decrease for American Rescue Plan Act. And of course, it has a different line item within it. So for the other two, the first two line items, should one be an increase and one be a decrease, or they both increase?
Yeah, so the first one is essentially increase from savings for the 40 grand. So that's a revenue. And then the second line is an expense code. So increase the expense code.
So decrease.
No, they're correct. It's drafted the proper way.
Okay, thank you.
Let me actually give Mr. Frankenfield, could you provide an overview for council to explain the purpose of resolution 11-24?
Yep. So two things. We're behind on audits, right? So the current year appropriation for the audit was 20,000 in the budget. So the way the budget was drafted, we should have assumed that we were going to try to do 3 years of audits this year. So our audit budget appropriation should have been 60,000 at the beginning of the fiscal year. So that's what the first line of the budget does. It says the town had savings over prior years because the audit was behind, but the expense are going to come to fruition in this fiscal year. So that's what the first two lines are. The third and the fourth line, because of the ARPA funding, the town incurred more than $750,000 worth of federal expenditures in 22 and 23. So the auditor had to increase his scope. The Single Audit Act requires any organization that receives more or expends more than $750,000 of federal funds to have a special audit with increased scope and increased review. So essentially the cost of the audit went up, which is what the $12,000 increase is. So I'll pause there.
Thank you, Mr. Frankenfield. First, I'll go to Councilmember Bronson, then Councilmember Kennedy.
So if that's the case, did we have a contract with Mr. DeSalvo to do 22 and 23 audit for $20,000?
I believe so.
There was a resolution passed to do FY 22 and 23. They were $20,000 each.
Right, so why now do we need to increase that? And if we do need to increase it, do we need to write a new contract?
Mr. Franklin Philbin, explain the increase, the need for increase or the requirement for increase again.
Well, I think I understood that the overspending offer of $750,000 require a more in-depth audit. But I don't know whether the contract specified that it was going to be a limited audit for the $20,000. So is he doing something special outside the scope of his contract?
So the single audit piece of this came up over the last month or so. So he had expected us to be under that $750,000 threshold. And then in conversations as we're planning for the 22 and 23 audit, it came to light, it was 800,000 in 22 and a similar number to that in 23. So his scope changed based on what he was previously made aware of.
But it's not in this contract.
Right. I would say the original contract needs to be revisited.
So we don't need to pass this until we look at a new contract, first of all, if we decide to pass this, because to me, an audit is an audit, whether it's more in scope or more, that's my take on it.
Thank you,
We
Councilmember.
definitely need a new contract.
Councilmember Kennedy.
I'm gonna go back to part of the original question I asked. So if we're increasing two line items by $40,000, where is that 80,000 coming from?
So we're increasing revenue. The first one, transfer from unassigned fund balance, that means taking it out of savings. So at the end of the year last year, let's say the town had $1.8 million in savings. We're taking 40,000 from there. And then the
Correct,
second line.
So that would be subtracting or decreasing.
But we're decreasing the town savings, but increasing the fiscal year 24 revenues.
I understand that, but if you look at the second part, you show that we're increasing one, decreasing one. On the first two, we're showing increase. And normally when we get something like this, we are told or informed what's being decreased. So is there a line item we're decreasing 80,000 from? Since these are both showing us increases?
No, so the draw from savings is $40,000. So we increase revenue with the first line and we increase the appropriation with the second line. That's a total of 40. And then the third and the fourth line, we're moving the appropriated expenses from the revenue replacement to the new audit line. But total from savings is $40,000.
Does anybody else understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, what I understand is he's taking it out of, say, the general fund and putting it into it.
I do understand that, but that would mean the general fund would be decreased, not increased.
Yeah, set up a line item for it.
Right.
Right, set up a line item for it.
You always have a debit and a credit side. So looking at this increase is a credit,
It's both
not
on
a
the same
debit.
side. It's both on the same side. That's what it is.
I think for clarity, maybe it needs a little note under, just for the sake of future visits to this resolution.
Yeah, definitely. And to answer your question, council member, it's the debit to fund balance doesn't come through the audit or the budget is what I'm saying. So the budget is just a fiscal year snapshot. We're increasing revenue and then we're increasing expense, but you don't see the decrease in savings or fund balance or general fund balance.
I have a question, Todd. Would what you're sharing with us, would it be illustrated in your reports that you gave to us today?
No, this is more budget. So what'll happen is for our next round of reports, let's say this was passed, revenue in the current year budget is going to go up 40,000. Expenses are going to go up 40,000, and the 12 we're just moving between lines is how it would look in the next round of reports that we provide mid-month.
And
Thank you.
in the report, there would also show a transfer, it would show a transfer of the 40,000 into revenue, correct?
Correct.
Do you have a further question, Councilmember Kimmy?
None that I want to ask in this meeting
Okay,
on this topic. Thank you.
okay. Mr. O'Connor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I think to help get back to how the budget amendments used to be, we used to have a graph. Basically, it looked like an Excel sheet that showed the decrease and the increase in each one in every single budget amendment. And I think I understand what the council members talking about related to that specific format, because this was a change in the format. I had to do a double take, but more so, I have a concern with the single audit and the full audit here. Actually, 2 or 3 concerns. One is I have a very strict budget as a department head with the American Rescue Plan. Ultimately, if it was the mayor's prerogative to do this, I completely understand, but I was not consulted by the other department head on the transfer of this funding. So I wouldn't go to the police department and spend the police department's funding without consulting the chief.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think part of this we can address as we meet out fixing the resolution. What are the other concerns that you have?
Well, the other one is I regularly attend the town hall forums related to the single audit and the full audit. And you either can do the single audit or the full audit. But if you're doing a full audit, you don't need to do the single audit, but you do need to audit everything. So the increased expense for the single audit is not comporting with the town halls from the feds related to the full audit. This would just fall into the normal scope of the actual audit the town's going to go through for the fiscal year. So you're not necessarily having to do the single audit, although it triggers the single audit requirement. So it's one or the other within the total comprehensive audit. And they've made that exception because they understand that there may be an additional expense associated to single audits. So that's why I don't understand the expense, because there's several other jurisdictions that are not incurring this expense because they're wrapping it up into their total audit. Or there may be a little bit more of an expense, but not what we're seeing here. So I don't understand that related to the single audit.
So the audit is going to be one audit. It just has increased scope. And so the amount for the increase is divided, it's collective of the 2 years. So it's about, we divide the 12 in half, it's like $6,000 extra each year. So just one moment. So is that the expenses you're disputing or saying that is not necessary?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, there's another jurisdiction that had $4.5 million that spent way more money than that is not incurring those costs for the audit. So I guess it deserves a further conversation related to this, related to the ARPA. I mean, I would have been able.
Okay, fair enough. Is there another question on the floor?
Yeah.
Councilmember Noble?
Just a comment for auditing. It's numbers, right? So I don't know how much is required for numbers. So, I mean, because you add more, you take away more, whatever, it's not. I don't know. I guess I need more understanding of what it is that we want the auditor to do to fulfill our financial responsibility.
And if we do, we write it in a contract and pay him $20,000.
Well, Mr. Best,
Yeah,
So-
when ARPA came down, I remember doing quite a bit of reading about it. If you receive a massive influx of ARPA funds that's much higher than, say, the tiny towns, like 750,000, then you have to do a special audit of those funds. If you've been watching the news lately, maybe because you haven't seen it, Baltimore City is undergoing some ARPA fund discrepancy problems. They're having some issues with their audits. So it's something that's important. It should have been foreseen because we knew about it a couple of years ago, but it's a separate audit that has a separate fee, and whether you had it in the contract with Mr. DeSalvo 2 years ago or not, it's really irrelevant. It's just a cost. I don't know if it was really thought that the town would garnish this level of funding from ARPA, but it's a separate audit. It's going to have to be done. The bottom line, either you pay Mr. DeSalvo to do it or you have some other accountant firm do the work.
Thank you, Mr. Rest.
And just for clarity,
Council President McDonald?
I guess I'm just trying to understand. So we went over the 750,000. How much more did we go over the 750,000? Into expenses that were either necessary or not necessary?
On
Good
that,
question for Mr. O'Connor.
on that note, I'll add that there was a plan for the ARPA spending, and it was a plan that council passed and approved in, I believe it was FY 23, January of 2022. So I wouldn't call the spending unnecessary, but I would highlight that, as Mr. Best said, we could have proactively determined that we would need to do an additional or a specialty audit if we spent over a certain amount.
Mr. Mayor, I think Mr. O'Connor is saying because he does the ARPA work for other municipalities, that somehow some of his other clients aren't experiencing this independent audit requirement. So maybe, I'll defer to him because he works in the trenches on this, but maybe there is a way to forgo this extra cost, and so he'll need to do a little more research for you.
So, Mr. Frankenfield, can you refer to the statute or the Single Audit Act that specifies the requirement for this additional scope?
Yeah, it's probably easier done by email, but yeah, it's called uniform guidance now, but it's very common. I see it in my clients that spend more than $750,000 in federal funding. But yeah, I'm happy to share the code. But yes, it's by my professional opinion, it's required of the town. I think the costs are warranted. There might be cheaper firms out there that we could take a look at, but it is a necessity.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not disputing that it's not a necessity. It needs to be done, but what I'm stating is it does not need to be a separate audit. It can be done as a part of the overall audit, which will have a massive cost saving. So that the audit is done per the statute, but the feds have given guidance in all the town halls that it can be done. So that I'm just saying it's not as just straightforward as it is. That's all.
Well, this resolution obviously requires more information and clarification. So we'll take note of the expert opinions topic, and we'll get more information from Mr. Frankenfield to council. We'll return to settle this issue. Thank you for the comments. Is there any other further comment on resolution 11-24?
Do you have a time frame, Mr. Frankenfield?
Yeah, we're shooting to wrap it up this fiscal year. We're at the mercy of how quickly Mr. DeSalvo can get through the info, but I think it's doable if we get started by the 1st of April.
Thank you.
What was that?
You just stated earlier that we already passed a resolution to get them to do the 22 and 20 audit.
Yes, we did.
So this shouldn't hold from starting.
Well, if I'm correct, I can build from completing the full audit, we have to have this passed if there is no expense that's required. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we should get a new engagement letter or a new contract which specifies, yes, we're gonna include the single audit requirements in the engagement, and then that requires the appropriation or the added funds in the budget.
I have no problem with that. Yes, but the key was this has to be done before it's finished. But this shouldn't be the reason why we can't start.
The engagement letter went out to council already, just wrapped up FY 21. So didn't prevent Mr. DeSalvo starting the audit, but if we need the full scope of the audit, we can determine exactly what we need, and we'll have to have an agreement to compensate him for that, or compensate the firm for doing that work. Any other questions?
For clarification for me this time, you said Mr. DeSalvo, and then you also said the firm. So who are we paying?
Mr. DeSalvo and his CPA firm. That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to sure.
No, his CPA. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no further question on resolution 11-24, we'll move to the next item under legislation, which is ordinance number 01-24. All right, this is a ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Forest Heights. An ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Forest Heights, Maryland, and Article 3, building and construction regulations for land use of the town ordinance to increase the annual fee for rental fee licensing rentals greater than 30 days, to authorize the suspension or revocation of a license, and adopt a license program for short-term rental licensing, requirements, fees, and penalties for violations of same, and generally relating to the rental property licensing, introduced by myself, and this should also be co-sponsored by Councilmember Brownson. Correct, Member Brownson? Yes. Now, I know we had some changes to this ordinance since last time, and so yes, let's discuss it because we're not going to vote to pass this tonight.
Yeah, we talked about on page 3, the $750 going from $75 to $750. And we wanted to change that to something, another amount. And I think when we had the Ways and Means Committee and the Finance Committee meetings, we had thought that $400 was reasonable. We looked at what other jurisdictions were charging, and we had at that time thought $400 was reasonable.
And the $400 is for the for which item?
This the second Roman numeral on page 3 of 12.
Okay, so number item 2, Roman numeral 2.
Yes.
Where it says all property permits shall be issued to the owner of the structure and premises containing said units and units. So,
Yeah.
Okay, and it says a fee of, so 450 versus 750.
400.
400.
Yes. I mean, that's what we had to discuss in our meeting.
So on this ordinance, was there any more recommendation from staff on where we could adjust fees? I think that was part of our question from last time.
And I thought on page 2 of 12 that whereas 1, 2, 3, the third whereas with all these costs and stuff like that, Council member Kennedy was saying, why are we listing all this? Is it relevant that we have all this information in here at the time? It's to be a little confusing. And we could just put whatever we have here in the town, rather than the multifamily platform licensing fees, things like that. We could scale that down some, that's a lot. And I think Attorney Best said that this was the state, what the state has, but we could change to what applies to us in the town. Anybody remember that besides? Oh, those are the only comments I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Bronson.
I'm not sure if I was questioning having it here. I just want an explanation of what it was, but it does explain. It says that's what the county charges.
Oh.
Mr. Mayor, the ordinance was rewritten and resubmitted, but a previous copy that I had submitted, I had changed the fees related to this. They're actually in the range that Councilmember Bronson just stated.
Okay.
I'm trying to pull up the electronic copy to get the exact amount. But what I did is, Councilmember Kennedy's keeping in consideration, I did the research that he requested and downloaded all the fees from DPI. After I did that, I took in Mr. Best's consideration, recommendation from council, and reduced the fees from what they were, and they came out to $423 actually. So it was $423, and what was inserted additionally was, and it was, I'm glad Councilmember Kennedy pointed this out, was, and you, Mr. Mayor, was the fee schedule. There was actually something that the town would have benefited from, which was that if somebody doesn't renew their license, there's a penalty for not renewing your license. And then when you come in to renew it because of the time that was lapsed that you were still renting, and the work effort that goes into the inspection. So I added that in, and I copied that directly from Prince George's County for the single residential homes. It was $500 if you allowed your license to lapse while you were still renting. And then for a Airbnb short-term rental was $100 if you allowed your license to lapse. And additionally, Mr. Best was brought up a very good point, is that we lacked any authority to revoke somebody's rental permit, which is key to what they're doing. And the chief had that conversation. So that was an addition to this ordinance as well. There is an administrative process. I think Mr. Best would be best to explain that should their license get revoked. But the fees were dead on with where you were looking, council member. If I can get my computer to stay charged.
So we need to get a revised copy of this.
I would absolutely, definitely get you a revised copy.
Okay, so then we can have the updates that were requested in the version that we consider and pass, or consider to pass. Mr. Best, what are the administrative things we need to be aware of relating to the revocation of a permit or license?
Mayor, the chief contacted me a couple of days ago. Want to know where in the code it allowed for revocation of a rental license, either for short-term or long-term. And I looked at it and I looked at what provision of the county code have been adopted by reference, and there is none. So we added that. You find it on page 4, item number 6 in all caps. and the next two or three provisions there provides for a suspension and revocation provision. And since it's a license and license is a property right, it calls for before, not for suspension, but for revocation requires affording a hearing to the licensee. And the town has a provision, has had it there for 10 years in Article 25 for conducting hearings. So, and it references that in here. So now you would have a provision in this code to actually revoke the licenses. I think there was a way to revoke in the existing code if they refused an inspection, you could revoke, but that was the only basis for revocation. If there's a code violation, housing code is not complied with, it's a nuisance premises, maybe it's filthy, then you can use this provision now that was just added a couple of days ago to revoke suspend or revoke the license. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Best. Councilmember Noble.
This may be for Mr. Best. Inspection, are you talking about on the outside or inside the home?
Normally inside.
And I guess my second question would be, do we have anybody who is qualified or skilled to do that?
Right. It's been 8-9 years since the county relinquished all jurisdiction over long-term rental license. The town does the inspections for that. And I'll let Mr. Green handle that. But when this new ordinance goes into place, there will be no inspection requirement of the town for the short-term licensing. It's only the long-term licensing, and because we found this problem with long-term licensing that didn't allow for revocation and suspension, other than if they were refusing an inspection, we have to add that in. Since we're already handling the Pandora's box is open, we're changing the long-term provisions as well as adding the short-term provisions. But yeah, the town does the inspection for long-term, but there will be no inspection for short-term. That it'll be basically just a registration program for long-term license, for short-term licensure. Thank you.
Mr. Green, could you expound on what Mr. Bester said? Thank you.
Sorry, with the short-term rentals, they follow the county guidelines. So they're the ones who conduct the inspections and set whatever the precedence is for the short-term rentals and Airbnb right now. So the town does not have an ordinance for that. So they have to follow the county guidelines. And I ended up double check that with the county to make sure, because we did have one property that was, when I first came in during my first week, that was a short-term rental, and they have to go through the county process. So once that license does expire, we'll have to go through those processes because it was already issued prior to my knowledge.
I think one way to explain it too is there's concurrent jurisdiction with the town and the county on building permits. You cannot get a building permit from the town until you get your DPI permit for building. It'll be the same with short-term rentals. The exception is long-term rentals. Long-term rentals is solely under the jurisdiction of the town. The county has no jurisdiction over long-term rentals. If that helps. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor.
Yes, that's helpful, Mr. Best, that clarification. Mr. O'Connor?
Yes, I was able to find the fees, so I want to make sure I'm narrowed down here. So what I have is a licensing fee of $165, and then there's an annual fee of $253 thereafter. which brings you to the roughly the $423 mark. From what I'm understanding, it's the will of the council that it should just be a one flat fee instead of a licensing fee, and that is just one fee. Would you prefer to stay at the calculated rate from what I got from the county at $423 or $400? $400, okay. And that is for the long-term rentals. And then for the short-term rentals, not sure what I had here based on what the county. Just your brief indulgence while I scroll to that section.
Bless you. Bless you.
Bless. Would be an initial $165 town licensing fee of the short-term rental, and then an annual town fee of $75. Is that acceptable, or do you want the flat fee of $253?
That would include the licensing and the annual, right?
It would include everything as a package in one fee. Short term.
Short term.
It was $253. Okay, 250. All right, so I have $400 for long term, 250 for short term, and the renewal surcharge if they fail to renew for short term is $100, and it's $500 for long term if they fail to renew in the renewal period.
Say that last piece again, Mr. O'Connor.
I have $500 for long-term rentals if they fail to renew prior to the expiration of their rental license, and $100 for short-term rentals if they fail to renew prior to the expiration of their license. That is surcharge fine. Yeah. And Mr. Green just said he'd request that it's left as a surcharge because they would have to satisfy that surcharge prior to being able to issue a new license.
Left as a surcharge, meaning that it's not wrapped. Well,
It's not.
explain. Yeah,
I guess it wouldn't be punitive. A fine would be punitive, although I'd have to rely on Mr. Best's for that one. But I would say that a fine would be punitive and a surcharge is not punitive and would have to be satisfied prior to the renewal of the license.
any further comments or discussion on ordinance number 01-24? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the next.
Will you put those in the revised copy that we get for our next meeting?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. We're going to take the copy that Mr. Best has and the fees here. We're going to merge it into one document, send it for legal review, and we should have a good document for your first reading next meeting.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have ordinance number 2-24. This is an ordinance of the mayor and council of the town of Forest Heights, Maryland, modifying and redesignating the third tax classification for residential rental real property situated within the town to become not approved for homestead tax credit, non-principal residents of owner real property, in addition to the existing commercial and non-commercial real property classes that are subject to municipal taxation at the same or different tax rates levied by the town council prior to each fiscal year, along with the approved budget and generally relating to municipal taxation. This is introduced by Councilmember Brownson. We won't be voting on this tonight, so is there discussion on ordinance number 02-24?
understanding of this is just we have a tax code on the books already for non-commercial property, and we're reclassifying it, the title of it. Is that right, Attorney Best?
So reclassifying and then also removing the homestead tax credit application.
If I may, Mr. Mayor?
Sure, Mr. Best.
Currently, there's 3 classifications of real property in a town: commercial, non-commercial, and rented residential real property. However, the rented residential real property, the accounting for it, the documentation for it, and the reporting of it to the tax assessor's office is very difficult and cumbersome. It's hard to track. So there's been talks in the past, let's change it to, instead of rented residential real property, let's change it to not approved for homestead tax credit, also known as non-principal residence of owner. Because SDAT, like you can go on SDAT right now and you can plug in your address and it's going to state whether you applied for the homestead property tax credit and whether you was approved or not. So the data is right there, and this basically does the same thing as the previous tax class of rented residential property. The idea was to be able to tax at a higher rate property that is not occupied by owner occupants. If it's non-owner occupants, if it doesn't have the homestead tax credit, that means it's probably being rented. Not necessarily 100% of the time, but it's most likely than not, it's being rented if it does not qualify for the homestead tax credit. Since that information is so easy to glean and use and report to the tax assessor, this is a more efficient way, because the other way is far more time consuming, hours of staff work. So this would be a better way to go, in a nutshell.
And just to clarify, it's if you look at the database and it says that a property applied but was denied, not if they don't have an application in. Is that correct?
It basically says whether they have an approved application or not. Doesn't say whether, I don't know that it says whether it was denied or not. Is that a problem? Is that an issue? Well, I mean, if someone applies and they're not qualified for the homestead tax credit, it's probably because they're not living there as a principal resident.
Sure, but my question was in the event that someone hadn't applied.
On the site, it doesn't show whether a person applied or not. It will say homestead or not homestead. Just
My question was, I thought when I looked at the site that I was seeing that there's a space for homestead tax credit. If you applied, it'll show approved. If you applied and you were approved, it'll show approved and it'll show what date. But if you didn't apply, I thought that the field was blank.
I'm not sure how this is relevant or what the concern is. Either you have it or you don't.
And my question is, you have it and you just didn't apply for it.
Right.
Right? Like you didn't apply for it, but it is your residence.
What this does from a town perspective, it gives an impetus to the property owner to get that application in, so they don't have to pay what could be a higher rate for this third classification, in addition to not getting the tax credit. So they kind of work together and they accomplish the same thing.
So as part of this, there would be like education for the residents to find out about the tax credit and apply for it. Okay. Mr. Frankenfield, did you want to add comment here?
Yeah, just my question was then what are next steps that we get that information to the county for billing? I guess, is that where we're going next here?
Right, well, the date of finality is January 1st. So we've already passed the date of finality. So that's why these dates are in here. this will not be able to really, this should be reported and there should be coordination after it becomes effective as an ordinance with the SDAT and the county assessor. But it's really not going to take effect until FY25. So no real serious legwork on it until this time next year.
So is that FY26? It would be, okay.
FY, let me look here, double check. Yes, FY26, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So, and we're forced, we can't make this effective in time for the budget cycle coming up this May and June. It's too late. You have to do this before the data finale on January 1st. Establish a new tax rate.
Thank you, Mr. Best and Mr. Frankenfield, Councilmember Noel.
I think the positive on this, it allows the town to give enough notice and information for residents to check on their homestead application, apply or not. So that when it does roll out, they'll have more information rather than waiting till the last minute.
Is there any other discussion on ordinance number 2-24, 02-24? Okay, hearing none, that will conclude legislation for this evening. Next, we will have our second public period for this evening. Is there anyone online who wishes to speak during public period at this time? If you could turn your mic on, state your name.
I'm Shalita Hawkins.
Actually, come up, if you could come up to the podium for us, Ms. Hawkins. As one of our residents. Watch that cord there. Good evening, Ms. Hawkins.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am asking a question about the state retirement. It was mentioned by Chief Reese, acting town administrator, that the town
Ms. Hawkins, are you asking a question as a resident?
as a resident.
Okay.
A resident. As a resident. Of Arapahoe. Arapahoe. That the town could not be in two retirement plans at one time. And so they would need to dismodify the acting retirement plan at the 401 that they have. And no contribution will be submitted at that time. How long will it take to go into the state retirement? And if an employee, because it's a 10-year vesting period, how long will the town, would that employee not receive any retirement benefits because they choose not to go with the state? And you don't have to answer.
Well, yeah, I don't have the answer right now, but thank you for asking the question. Mr. O'Connor, did you get the question?
I did.
You did?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Do you want me to answer it now or?
No, we'll come back with it.
Okay.
Yeah, let's research it, finalize it, get it definitive, and we can provide an answer. Thank you, sir. All right. At this time, the second public period is now closed. We're going to take a brief 5-minute recess. Please take your seats.
See for yourself. Also, certificates is.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the town work session for the town of Forest Heights from March 4th, 2024. We just took a brief 5-minute recess. And at this time, we will move into council member and ward reports. And first, we'll begin with Ward 1. Council President McDonald.
Good evening. So we had a green team meeting on February the 24th, which was well attended. We were quite surprised with the number of people that showed up. I think we had like maybe about 15.
Pull that much closer to you just a little bit.
About 15 to 20 people to come to our green team meeting. So we're in the process of cleaning the garden ground and then preparing it for tilling the ground and then planting in April. So the garden contributes to our Sustainable Forest Heights, and we will be submitting our application for recertification in June. Our next meeting is March the 23rd at 10 a.m. right here at the municipal building. Our finance committee meeting is encouraged by the progress that we're making with our internal controls and the recommendations that the audit revealed let us know that there's some things that need to be put in place as was recommended by the committee, i.e. SOPs, and again, attention to our internal controls, because it is our desire to be fiduciarily responsible and to be good stewards over our finances. And I will be attending March 11th through the 13th, the National League of Cities. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to go there. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President McDonald. Next, we'll go to Ward 2, and we'll begin with Council Member Kennedy.
Just to remind everyone that the election is actually Wednesday. So I know y'all haven't seen the normal signs that you would see out to remind everyone, but the election is this coming Wednesday, so please come out, cast your vote. Look forward to seeing everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kennedy. Next, we'll have Councilmember Brownson.
I just want to piggyback on what Council President McDonald said. I attended the Green Team meeting, and I attended as the chairperson of the Beautification Committee. Because some of the volunteers at the Green Team meeting will be volunteers for the beautification projects that we are going to do as well. So as you mentioned, it was well attended, and it appears that, you know, there will be probably, you know, 4 to 6 volunteers at the beautification committee as well. And I did do a walkthrough with Ms. Clark and Ms. Clooney at the community garden to see the damage that the weather had done, and look at the damage that the WSSC did when they were putting in the pipes. So the garden appears to be in pretty bad shape right now as far as the leveling of the grounds and a lot of debris that was left. So I have been talking to Mr. O'Connor, and he's gone to work with Denny House to try to schedule a time that they will come and, try to do some work as far as leveling the ground and taking away some of the debris. And I work with Ms. Cooney and Ms. Clark about what is needed for the planting season. And they did give me a list and an inventory of what would be needed as far as the raised bins, the wood is rotted. So they will need to be replaced. The sand, but the topsoil is, not topsoil, just dissipate over time. So you're gonna need more of that. So it's a lot of things that will be needed, but I did look at the budget and there's $3,000 in a line item for the community garden. They may need more than that, but there's some money. I looked at the budget that's in community outreach and youth that, but it won't be a whole lot. So the more we get from volunteers and the more we get from the Denny House, we hopefully will have everything ready by planting season. And they did tell me that Council Person Kennedy know how to fix raised beds in the garden. So they will be talking to him. And then Mr. O'Connor said he knows how to do beds as well. So we're gonna ask for those volunteers to come out to help with these beds. Thank you, and we're gonna thank you in advance.
That's fine. Just make sure it's on the Sunday.
Okay, right, yeah, it can be on Sunday. And thank you, Mr. O'Connor, for volunteering.
And actually, I believe it was Ms. Clark, Ms. Cooney, and myself who built the original one.
Yeah, that's what they said. Yeah. So they say you do a good job. So we're looking forward to. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Hawkins also was very instrumental.
Yeah, but she did say she doesn't like gardening. She does it, but she doesn't like gardening.
Ms. Hawkins has helped with probably almost everything that's going on in this town, whether people know it.
Yes. This is true. You're the original super volunteer, aren't you, Ms. Hawkins? Thank you, Councilmember Brownson. I just want to highlight the dates to make sure everyone got them. Did you give the dates for the next meetings? March 23rd at 11 or 10.
Oh, yeah, it's the Green Team and the Beautification Committee meet at the same time.
Okay.
Yes. And then the Finance Committee and the Ways and Means Committee meet at the same time as well, which is March 30th.
Okay, great. The same
date, same date. It's the same day, but an hour later.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we'll go to Ward 3, and I'll begin with Councilmember Hines. Yes. Councilmember Noble in that case.
Good evening, everyone. I attended the Greater Oxon Hill CDC meeting the other day, and on April 30th, they're going to have a fundraiser with the businesses and in the Branch Avenue quarter to get more memberships. So memberships are $50 for people to participate. And I went to Oxon Hill Library. Every Monday, there's a caseworker there from 10 to 4. And the caseworker's responsibility is to help the community and its residents to apply for supplemental nutrition assistance, Maryland energy assistance, temporary cash assistance, medical assistance, emergency assistance to family with children, temporary disability assistance. So every Monday at Oxon Hill Library from 10 to 4, there's a caseworker there. So if any residents need any services, then you can direct them to Ms. Walker, the caseworker at the Oxon Hill Library.
May I ask a question about that?
Yes.
So that would be the same as a person going to the Medicaid office?
Right. Okay. So she can assist on.
They don't have to go down and make it.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, it's Women's History Month, and to all the women on the council and the clerk,
And the police clerk, I want to say, I celebrate you. Now, with that in mind, I have to always give my spiel for Sue E. McGinnis, the first woman elected to the town of Forest Heights. And then plenty women followed. And now we have a new stretch of men, but that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. The chief answered the question, the flagpole in the Veterans Circle, which I will be looking for, and the safety glass as well. And then I had questions on the posters for the town meetings. It says, see Forest Heights website. Can we just add the website instead of see Forest Heights website? Just put the website on that thing. And then my last question is board docs. I know we spent a little bit of money on board docs and we had a little bit of training, but where is board docs?
Well, we still have Word docs. I think, did you ask for us to do another training? Because I know the one we had was really fast. Let's do another one so we can have folks, let's schedule another training with the gentleman from Diligent to allow the council after the election on Wednesday, the newly elected council, to absorb the training.
Right, and not right before a meeting, but enough time to ask questions on a Sunday or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
And can you come in person? Okay.
Let me see.
Thank you, Council. Oh, sorry, I interrupted. Continue your list.
I think that's it for now. I'll update you on some more information at the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Noble. Councilmember Hines.
Good evening.
Good
I
evening.
want to say that on Friday, February 29th, I attended what was Soul Train at the Heights. It was really nice. It was definitely packed. There were so many stars, you could not believe it, but it was really nice. The children sang. I was very impressed. Okay, the next thing I guess it's going to be a new business, but I do want to bring it out. You know, I know there's going to be an election this coming Wednesday, but I have a lot of constituents or residents that are saying it doesn't look like anyone is running. No signs. And when I say signs, I mean, I want to talk about what Forest Heights can put out, you know, over the entryways of where we come in at. So that'll be at my new business. That's what I'm gonna bring up, but thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hines. Yes.
In the absence of Councilwoman Little, I wanted to share about the event that's coming up on March the 16th, the Youth
I'm going to talk
Future.
about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. And then also I wanted to add, it was mentioned earlier about the Washington Area Bicyclists Association. And just wanted to encourage individuals to be aware of the partnership that we're trying to build with WABA and the benefit that it's going to bring to the town of Forest Heights. Those individuals, youth and adults who desire to want to learn how to ride will be able to partake in this. So just wanted to share that part. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President McDonald. Okay, I also attended Soul Train in the Heights at Forest Heights Elementary. It was a packed house, students, families, food, fun. That was a great event. Great to see so many families out last Friday. And on that note, the children's choir sang Lift Every Voice and Sing at the end. They did such a good job. Councilmember Hines and myself think it's a good idea if we invite them to some of our 75th events, one of them to sing perhaps or perform, since they're right at home and sang loud and proud and on key and well under direction. So we're looking to see how we can integrate the schools into our celebration. I'll also be at the National League of Cities training. I'll be there on the weekends for the executive education training, learning about how to run our municipality more efficiently and to comply with regulations, to go after grants and all those things. Along with council president, you'll be there. And I think another person, anyone else going NLC? National League of Cities? You'll be there? Okay, Councilmember Noble as well. We do. I also want to let folks know in the audience or at home, if you're watching from home, there's going to be a Latino Education Summit happening at Oxon Hill High School on this Saturday, March the 9th from 8:30 a.m. until, I don't know what time it ends, but basically you need to be there early on Saturday morning. It is a forum with the school board member for District 8, Madeline LaSalle Fraser, and other educational staff from Prince George's County will be there to open up the conversation with our Latino community members and families to make sure you understand and have access to all the resources that the schools can provide and to promote student success. So that's, again, 8:30 a.m. at Oxon Hill High School this Saturday, March 9th. Next Saturday, or the Saturday, March 16th, I don't want to confuse anyone. So Saturday, March 16th, from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., Councilmember Little and myself will be throwing a vision board future flow planning session for the youth in our community. This is for ages 10 to 18. We are going to use all the council members' magazines and pull out your ideas and plans, set goals for yourself for the rest of the year. And then at the end of that session, we are going to gather your ideas for what you would like to see in the town of Forsyth for youth and what you would like to contribute. And as I mentioned earlier, we will also have Samaya Pearson, who is the 2024 Prince George's County Youth Poet Laureate, as a special guest at the very beginning. So we want to make sure that everyone who's in that 10 to 18 range in Forsyth comes out. It's a free event. You can register for the event. Information is in the newsletter. There's a link to register there. And we look forward to seeing our youth out on Saturday, March 16th at 1 p.m. here at the municipal building. It's Women's History Month, so we definitely want to shout out Women's History Month. I read that when it actually started in 1987, it was a week before, but some experts found out that only 3% of historical texts was dedicated to achievements by women. And so they've been working to change that and bring out and highlight the many things that women have contributed to in society over the many years. And we hope to continue to see that. Briefly, met with Flintstone Elementary with Council President McDonald a couple of weeks ago, and we're able to make a really good connection with Principal Brandy Stinson there. We're going to invite her to come and address the town council and the community soon. We also were able to resume delivering the town newsletter to Forsyth Elementary and Flintstone, so they got newsletters this week for March. And we'll continue to do that in the future. Also, I think we get newsletters to businesses as well. I have a couple more items. I know the hour is well spent, but these are things that we want to make sure residents know and council as well. House Bill 1391, which is specifically for the town of Forest Heights to get an increase in our local impact grant or our local impact funding from MGM Casino. That hearing is happening this Thursday, March the 7th at 1 p.m. in Annapolis. I'm sorry. No, that's Thursday, March the 7th. Yeah, Thursday, March the 7th at 1 p.m. in Annapolis. Residents at home, you can testify virtually or in person. If you would like to testify virtually, please call the town hall or use one of the email addresses in the newsletter to contact myself or contact our clerk so that we can get you signed up to testify. The deadline to testify or to register to testify is going to be Wednesday at 3 p.m. So please contact us as soon as possible if you would like to support the town and getting increased funding from MGM. If you have testimony, great. If you don't have testimony, our consulting firm will help to give you talking points and testimony so you can help share that the need in Forsyth is great for this funding because of the way that we're impacted. And 75th anniversary events are in the newsletter. You can register, buy tickets for the gala. The homecoming event is in there. The Incorporation Day event is in there. So April 19th, April 20th, and April 21st, we have events for residents in the town. We'd love for you to take advantage of all three if you can. Spread the word and put them on your calendar, April 19th, 20th, and 21st. The committee has raised a total of $18,500 so far towards our initial goal of $20,000. We expect to exceed our goal by a healthy amount. And so if the council pleases and we get overwhelming support for the event, we may come to the council to consider increasing the capacity for the gala on Sunday, if council so wishes to do. But we'll keep you updated, and we have a report of the amount that's been spent for each event. And we'll continue to report what we've raised and what has been expended. Oh, yes. Lastly, actually, I'm going to let you mention that. Lastly, in preparation for an FY25 budget that will reflect the needs we have and the resources we have and where we are financially, I'm beginning my meetings with department heads and with our staff to formulate a budget that we'll present to council that will reduce expenditures where we don't need to spend the money and that will really help us to get on sound financial footing. So as we close out past due audits, we will be tightening our belt to make sure we have funds in reserves. So in FY25, we are planning to have a surplus. We are planning to have funds in case of an emergency and funds that will allow the town to grow and to take care of the maintenance that we need for our town and to plan for other initiatives that impact the lives of residents positively. And with that, I'll close out council member reports and the mayor's report. And I'll let council president just add another item really quickly.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Town of Forest Heights Police. We met with, when Mayor Lilly and I met with the principal and assistant principal at Flintstone, they let us know that the Town of Forest Heights police officers are out when kids are dispersed from school and they have engagement with the children. And they were very well pleased with the interaction that the police department and the members have with the youth. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the police department. Thank you.
I'm gonna let the chief do it. Chief Reese, can you talk about the spring break camp?
So, just give me 1 second. The spring break camp is it's going to be March the 25th to the 30th. That is the Prince George's County spring break. We're not incorporating, because obviously Easter runs into that. We're not going to incorporate that. We're going to close it off on the 30th. On that Saturday, I believe we're going to do a Easter egg hunt like we normally do. So we're going to do that. Obviously, it is all children that we want to bring in from all of our schools, Forest Heights, Flintstone, John Hanson. We're even incorporating Valley View. I have another, I'm just giving you a brief. So we received some funding from District 8 Councilman Errol Barrow's office for 2 of our camps. That is for spring break and summer camp. Received a total from Prince George's County about $76,000. So that is going to take care of everything. We want this to be totally free for the parents. We don't want them to pay anything. It's going to take care of food, transportation, activities. We're planning to go to I know Mr. John O'Connor. We're doing the ice hockey. We're going to do things that we normally don't do. We're going to get outside and play, have activities, and it's going to also be some education portion as well. So we're taking volunteers, and there's going to be a sign-up sheet for all of the ages that want to come in from 7 to 14. So I just want to do the camp. Now, if anybody else wants to come in and help during that week, we're not asking to stay there all week, but if you can give a couple of, we always have our super volunteer, Councilwoman Hines to come and always lending helping hand. But if you want to come in to sit in one of the activities and interact with the youth, you're more than welcome. We normally have it in this area right here. And we incorporate band outside, or we may have a field trip. We're going to go up to Oxon Hill Farm to visit up there as well. So.
Thank you.
Yes, we are using the bus. We do have a driver.
How can folks register for the camp?
So we want them to, we're gonna go do a sign-up sheet at all of the schools. So all of the schools will know how to sign up. What we usually do is we go to the guidance counselor who has the most interact with the students. And so they're gonna sign up from there. And we can also, if anybody else from home wants to sign their child up, you can always call the police department during normal business hours of 301-839-4040. Our lovely police clerk will take those names down and we will get it into it. So, but I will have, and I just want to put on your radar, we will have a resolution to accept the money. We have to get some things done with the finance, but we'll have a resolution for next meeting for you to accept the grant funding.
I have a question. So I see the
That might towards you, Councilmember Brown, so they can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I see the advertisement in the newsletter about the spring camp since it's at the end of the month. But are there flyers or something that people that don't, because I haven't got a newsletter, that don't get the newsletter, or how other, because there's a lot of youth that go to other schools that live in the town rather than Flintstone and the ones you listed. They go to other schools as well, but they live in the town.
So,
and they have, what's the thing, learn at home, or what is it called? Homeschool, yeah.
So we're going to advertise it. That's one of the initiatives that I know the mayor wants to put. We're going to advertise it on obviously all of our social media platforms. We take the flyers to all of our current schools that we have within our jurisdiction. We do not have a way for, I don't believe, if they don't interact with the government on a regular basis, like for homeschool, we wouldn't have, like, they would have to get it from the newsletter or our website. But for all of the other schools like Valley View, and of course, because we're using District 8 money, we want to incorporate some people in this area so as far as like Glass Manor and District and Valley View Elementary. So, but we're taking any suggestions. Oh, it's in the newsletter. I can get you one. I will email you one, and I can get you a tangible copy. Yes. Absolutely, I'll get you one. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, Chief Reese. Is there a number of kids? Do you have a limit on the number of kids?
Yes, so we're going to limit it to about 40 kids. Well, because that's a lot. I think that's a lot.
In your space too, right?
And due to space
and food.
And also we're doing it per the amount of staff that we have dedicated.
Right.
Obviously, we don't want too much because obviously we're using obviously the police officers. We have Prince George's County dispatchers coming down, just the volunteers. So the volunteers that we already have committed, that's how we're doing the ratio now.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so now we're going into new business. We have 2 items under new business and can consider more if there's, I think Councilmember Hines has something. So under new business first, just wanted to announce that I'm launching a youth ambassador pilot program in the town of Forest Heights. This is a program aimed at giving young people in our community a voice and stake in our town's future prosperity. And for the pilot program, 2 high school students in the community between the ages of 15 and 17 will be appointed from April to December. So this is a shorter term pilot with our goal of trying to cultivate great minds in our youth. This will give them an opportunity to be shaped as future leaders by being exposed to the inner workings of the municipal process and civic and community responsibility. Some of the responsibilities that the youth ambassador will have is to attend 1 town council meeting per quarter, where they can provide updates and share information regarding youth with the council. They'll meet with the mayor once a month to discuss town initiatives and issues. And we're going to ask them to attend 1 town event per quarter where they're volunteering or speaking and serving with the mayor and council. And then also to brainstorm and advise on events for youth and help us curate items that go on social media and then also in the newsletter. As participants in this program, the ambassadors will receive community service hours towards school credit. They'll get a letter of recommendation upon successful completion of the ambassadorship in December, and invitations to accompany mayor and council at community events as their parent or guardian approves and as they're available. They'll also get the opportunity to submit testimony for issues facing the town in the county and state level. We'll add them to the town website, and then we'll give them a copy of the town charter as well for studying purposes. And if this pilot is successful, I would propose that at the beginning of 2025, that we launch a process where we have youth in the community submit applications and essays. And at that time, council can consider if we're going to expand the number of youth that participate. And one last thing, at the end of the pilot program, we'll be taking feedback from the youth to find out what they would change or what could be improved to make it more palatable and useful for youth for the full scale program. Councilmember Noble. Yes. Yes. So the 2 students that will be appointed have already been active in the community and have shown a penchant for both volunteering, leadership, and they're, as part of the process, they and their parents will review this, agree to it, and then attest that the student is performing well in school and will continue to do so. And so that's going to be part of the evaluation process. For this part, they were already showing interest in leadership. In fact, one of the students let us know about the Abundant Life Ministries when they were having their Thanksgiving food giveaway. And they sent us a flyer and let us know to put it in the newsletter because they were already thinking community minded and helping to connect the dots. And the other potential candidate has been a super volunteer at town events and also town events and events around town. So that's how we're starting out. I think once we get to the full program, we'll probably be doing an evaluation of grades and other things like that, and council input will be welcome. Thank you, Councilmember Noble. Secondly, myself and Mr. Best met with the National View team and continue to do so monthly. And their stormwater engineering team want to come to the town and have a meeting with the community to discuss and explain how their property will manage stormwater and how it's going to prevent the town being negatively affected. So we want to schedule a date for that meeting. And they said they can meet anytime with us in early part of May, I think before May 11th, any date that works for the town, the council, and the community. This is National View and the Petra team.
They're doing what again?
They would like to have a meeting, a community meeting where they can talk about the stormwater management process that's going to happen with the development coming to the town, National View. And we're looking for a date in the early part of May. Separate from the regular town meeting.
So would this be something that we would have ready and available for the April newsletter?
Yes. This is something, if we can select it tonight, it'll go in the April newsletter and it would go in the May newsletter. And now we could propose to have this on a weekend, like May 11th, Saturday, May 11th. It is. Or maybe we could propose Saturday, May the 4th. Or a suggestion for another day. Do we have any building reservations on Saturday, May 4th? Okay. May 4th, Saturday, May 4th. So we could schedule this at 10 a.m. Okay, let's do 10 to 12, May 4th, Saturday, May 4th, here at the municipal building. And we'll also need to get a notice out, drafted for residents so that they can attend. Also on social, on the website. And if we have the physical signs up by that point, that's a great item to make sure we put at the different entrances of town so residents know. If we get any handouts prior to, we'll try to disseminate those as well. One additional item, just on the Youth Ambassador Program, once those candidates are selected and families have gone through the process and met, we'll introduce them at the town meeting, hopefully one in April. If not the first one, it'll be the second, but hopefully the first meeting. No, I will appoint them, but first making the notification to council and then, yes, we'll finish the second half of the process after tonight. Is there any other new business tonight?
It was brought to my attention that it doesn't look like an election is going on because there's nothing to, I've been saying this for years, ever since I got on council, that, I've gone to other cities, Capitol Heights, District Heights, and when they have election, they have overhead, in their entryway, a mayor and council election, or it's election day. And I don't understand how come we haven't invested in our community, because I go across the street when it's my time to run and I hold signs up and I bring people around, turn people that's coming home or either leaving out early in the morning and thank you for reminding me. They forget, because the newsletter or the signs, you can have the electronic sign, but they say that they don't have time to just sit and wait for that particular. So can we invest in some form of signs? A banner, yes, something that, especially next year, it's going to be a mayor council election and our turnout, Chip, is so awful. And we need to figure out how we can turn that around. So that's my new business, okay?
Thank you, Councilmember Hines. Is that something we can, well, I guess right now we have the election this week, but.
So, I think we need to take a look at it, because I know, talking with Ms. Hawkins, we only budget $3,000 a year. I think we actually have to pay the Prince George's County at least $1,400 of that just to even do the election. So that kind of chops in the hand, and obviously I know we have to pay the election board. So it's a budget issue. We could probably visit and during the budget to up it, but right now we only budget for $3,000.
Thank you, Chief Reese. Councilmember Noble.
Yes, I just want to comment on the election part. And the cost they're talking about too includes when people register voters, get the announcement of the election. So if you're not registered in the town, you wouldn't get it. So that's just part of that expense. But I have new news. So member in Ward 3, you know. She's gathering, I'm working with her, we're gathering some Forest Heights history. So we're right now in the process, we're trying to schedule some interviews with people who've been in the town because time is of the essence, because we just lost a resident in Ward 3 who had been here forever. And so we want to do that. And the other news, I'll be participating in reading the essays for the If I Were Mayor. So that's, I think March something, 19th. So I'll see if I can see some Forest Heights essays.
Hopefully.
Flintstone or any other school in district, this area. So that, and also on Flintstone, their career day is April 19th from 9 to 2:45, I think. So you can go onto their website. They have a Google sheet that you can sign up and participate any period of time. Flintstone, April 19th. They're having career day.
Yeah, it's the same day as our incorporation day ceremony, but it's earlier in the day. It's in the morning, which is nice. So we can do both that day.
So I think that's all of my, it's probably something else, but that's it for me. Thank you. 9:30 to, I think 2:45. So you can be there all day or you can pick a slot of time.
Thank you, Councilmember Noble. Councilmember Kennedy.
The two ordinances earlier that we need revisions for due to primarily the fines. We don't need to stop at just that. We actually do need to revisit the fines that we are charging currently. As it is right now, if you are renting property, you're paying less than if your property is just vacant, which that doesn't make sense since you're actually getting money on something that's rented. So I don't know if these were the original fees from way back when, if they were, when they were adjusted, modified, but we desperately need to go back and revisit those also. Whether it's vacant, whether it's rented, I mean, think about it. If it's vacant, you should be charged less, but right now you're getting charged noticeably more. So just, no. So I would like permission to, I guess, start the ball rolling with getting, I guess, looking at that so that way we can modify it.
How's council feel? Is council in favor?
Our fees that we charge currently, whether it's vacant property, whether it's rental property, or whatever other fees that we have, we need to revisit it, because I know, for example, if you have a vacant property that's not generating money, you're getting charged a heck of a lot more than a property that's being rented. So the rental fee is noticeably less than a vacant fee, and I'm sure some of the other fines will have to get readjusted so it coincides with everything.
Unfortunately, I think all jurisdictions, that's kind of the tax structure. That doesn't mean it has to be that way here, but if you go across the line to DC, that, because they don't want the property to be vacant, so they feel, so it's almost like it's a penalty, right? So you can't do anything because your rate is higher.
Okay. Well, Councilmember Kennedy, were you asking for, if council wants to move forward with it, or you're just asking for getting the language drafted up in a resolution to change it?
Or it's a combination of both. Because at the end of the day, it has to come forth through resolution, or I don't know if that would be an ordinance change or what.
Okay, sounds like
The vacant property fee.
The vacant property fee is $250 initially and $125 every 6 months.
And what I could What I could offer, Mayor and Council, is we had looked at this some time ago, all the fees in general. If I could probably bring everything together and bring it to committee and have it hashed out, bring something back from there.
Yeah, is this a Ways and Means, right? Yeah, Ways and Means will be happening for finance. Could be both, yeah. Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Any other new business tonight? Okay, well, with that, the time is now 11:09 and this meeting is adjourned.